have the recent years shaken your faith in democracy? From the election of Donald Trump to the anti-vaccine movement to the inability of world governments to respond to crises like climate change, have these moments made you question the efficacy of letting everyone vote? Could there possibly be another way? All right, yeah. This is about democracy in general, and we've have some individuals on this channel come on and talk about how democracy is not the most efficient way of doing things or most beneficial. And there are plenty of examples for, I think, for a person to question these things. So I'm curious if anyone else has similar feelings. And if you can imagine an alternate world that would at least maybe not be superior, but be a different way of doing things, might be a bit more efficient. So let's go for introductions. Let's go to Captain A. Jones.
Yo, thank you so much for having me. I'm Captain A. Jones, not a captain, and not an A or a Jones. Yeah, this is actually a question I've like kind of always fantasized about. One of my favorite animes is Code Geass, and that's where, just long story short, it's about as all good anime are, a young boy protagonist who goes out with a secret power and then takes over the world. But he takes over the world from the bad guys. You see, that's the catch. But he does it using questionable methods, so it brings up a lot of morality issues. Anyway, it kind of like, it sounds good in theory, but then there's always just it just has to go into the hands of one bad actor. So I would love to hear what everyone else has to think. And there's my anime take.
We needed at least one. Derry.
Are they supposed to be? I'm sorry. Is this? It's supposed to be a quick summary, or
yeah, just your initial thoughts.
Okay. Well, I don't really question too much like should democracy be overturned, but I have gotten to a point where I've rethought the history of democracy and whether or not as it stands, if it should be changed or modified. And the answer to that is yes. I don't know about abolishing the system, but there are definitely questions to ask as far as like efficiency goes. If a single person, let's even just say Trump, were to issue an order for building a wall, I'm sure it would get done a lot quicker. There's a reason why executive actions have been a method of choice in politics for presidents to get things done. Just you cut that line ahead and things get done quicker. No surprise there. But efficiency isn't the only question, and I'll stop there for now.
Okay, Sneaky Debate Man.
Enough of this America-centric bullcrap, all right? Let's talk about England, all right? So I will say my faith in democracy has been a little bit shaken. And if you know what I'm going to bring up, it's Brexit, okay? We had a referendum on Brexit, and we left the EU, and it was terrible. And the government knew it was going to be terrible, and they did it anyway. And it is it's currently terrible. We have no petrol. We've run out of fuel. It's terrible. Everything is going terrible. It's bad. And it is like really bad. And it was a terrible decision to put that up to a referendum. Most people don't understand the fucking full impacts of a geopolitical decision like leaving the European Union. Why the fuck is like your average Joe voting on that? Fucking Dave, who supports North FC, doesn't have a fucking clue what the European Union does. He doesn't know what the fucking the fucking trade union is. He doesn't know what that fucking does. You gotta fucking vote on that. And now we're at the US, and there's no the fucking UN, and there's no trade union, right? Like what? We got a petrol. It was terrible. It was terrible. What terrible decision to vote on this? Why did we have a referendum on that? Why did we do democracy? That was a terrible idea. However, in many cases, there is not a better alternative. For example, I wouldn't just like a dictator. Like, we should definitely elect our representatives. But on the flip side, yes, there are some decisions that should not be given to the general public because they're fucking idiots, man. They're fucking morons. I mean, I'm like politically savvy, or at least I consider myself to be a little bit so. I don't know the full fucking implications of leaving the EU, let alone fucking like random dickheads in fucking England. It was terrible. I'm still mad about Brexit.
Preach.
Oh man. My favorite part of this is that governmental crises make spoons frequency of the voice go higher, so that's great.
They do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Valency.
Yes, I think democracy is based. If we make this world, I've lived under a dictatorship and I've lived under a monarchy. And no, I prefer democracy is much better. I know the criticism of the average Joe happens, and it would happen, but I don't blame the system for it. I blame like other factors that aren't related to democracy, like misinformation or like missing education or something like that. But we'll go in depth on that rather than actually the democracy. I feel like for now we're too far behind as human beings to start thinking of alternatives of democracy. I think we should start looking to liberal to implement liberal democracies everywhere. And like start making the human population more progressive. Then we can start to thinking of alternatives. Right now we're very far off. Yeah, that's my take.
Okay. All right, peace, go.
Yeah, I think Valenci's and many things right on the money. You can find all sorts of systems of government that make bad decisions. Bad decisions are not unique to democracy. You can find authoritarian governments that make bad, foolish, counterproductive decisions. So it's not enough to point to one bad policy choice by the polity. Ultimately, if you have selfish, bad people, it's very hard to fix that with institutions and very hard to fix that with systems of government. So right now we're not in the endeavor of solving all of human evil at the moment. And there are other deeper problems that sort of transcend type of government, which we need to deal with to get rid of those bad decisions. In terms of democracy by itself, I think ultimately it has proven to be, while potentially fragile in many places, with the right set of institutions, and really with the following key aspect to it: power opposing power, and the concentration of power not being in one entity or one person's hand. That has provided a flourishing of art, a protection of civil liberties, and a sort of bane against corruption. And so I think ultimately democracy, having the people have a say through a direct method, be that by electing the people who are in charge or by voting on issues occasionally, is a great check on institutional insiders who otherwise might not be doing things in the best interest of their country. Now, that criticism can be said of democracy as it stands right now, but I just think comparing the modern democracies with the full institutions to the track record of authoritarian governments, there's no comparison in terms of expression and civil liberties.
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah, so my faith in democracy is not shaken up. I'm still very pro-democracy. I've spoken about this on the stream multiple times. I have a lot of experience on political TikTok, so I've dealt with a lot of ANCAPs and such, and I've heard very cringe anti-democracy takes, and I personally do prefer a system where people have some say in what goes on in their country. But I do understand that it has its flaws, and I have my complaints as well. I understand that the people made a huge mistake with Brexit, but I guess my response to that was, you guys might be running out of petrol, but have you ever considered using gas?
That's it. Gotta change.
But I also understand the flaws with effectiveness, though I think, even though there's been some complaints about how people make a lot of bad decisions, a way to make democracy more effective is to become more democratic, at least in this situation with America. So I assume there might be some disagreement, but I think money is an unbelievably corrupting factor, and I think it slows down the process tremendously. And I think that if we had a more democratic process, so let's just say the money's out and these people who hold unpopular opinions don't have the support of billionaire corporate donors to prop them up, then I don't think they would go very far. And then in turn, you would have people that believe in more popular positions because that would be the determining factor for victory, ideally. And then that would mean popular policy gets pushed at a faster rate. Now, that's just an example of how I think we can make democracy more effective. But overall, am I thinking that there's have I lost faith in democracy? No, mainly because I have faith in people, and I have faith that they make good decisions most of the time, at least in America.
Okay, open to the panel.
Yeah, I don't agree with you. I don't think democracy is like about being faithful to the people. It's actually the opposite. I am against monarchies because I don't trust people, right? I don't trust people. That's why I choose democracy, right? I choose like not just one person or like everyone, and like we fight over, and then we see what's better, even if it's not. That's like the concentration of power. It's out of mistrust for people, I'd assume, rather.
That's the key there. I mean,
Oh.
the key really is limiting concentration of power. And that's why it really matters to have, and why it was so harmful, Trump's presidency was so harmful, is that breaking down those institutional barriers is a highway to all sorts of problematic decisions and really to authoritarianism and dictatorship. And so having democracies where you can see in a lot of Latin American countries, this is coming from someone who's lived in Latin American countries, and I know Valencia also in Chile, whatever.
Actually,
A lot of times, like, what is the judiciary, right? They're nothing but they're not really a force anywhere. Or what is Congress? They're totally unable to do anything in a lot of these countries because there's no real division of power. And so I think that it's important not just to have democracy for its own sake, but to have democracy moored to some system of government which separates powers.
I think like
Yeah.
the bigger issue is like where those democratic decisions get chosen. So for example, if we put like say abortion up to question in like US Congress, you're not going to have abortion for very long, right? All it takes is like one Republican majority and you lose abortion rights. Right, it's not really going to work very well, right? Should we do that? Or that's democratic, right? Is that a good idea? Should we put it up to a referendum to the nation? Because again, you're not going to have abortion rights for very
Well,
long.
no, that's
what you
wrong.
choose to do.
If we had a referendum, it would be protected. I think abortion is one of those issues where it's majority popular to support it or be pro-choice.
Yeah, but
So
it would be
yeah.
threatened. That's the point,
the-
right?
but
Should,
the
should,
problem
should we
is-
even put something
Sure.
so like
issues-
I'm not
issues
intrusive?
saying.
are-
By the way, I'm not saying that we should put abortion to direct democracy, but I'm just saying like that argument. If that argument was applied in real life, abortion would
Yeah,
still
but,
be
like,
maintained.
Also,
all I have to do is
Debate
give
Man-
one example, right? Where
Yeah, no, but the reason why your example is so bad is precisely because one of the reasons why Republicans have outsized say in government is the anti-democratic selection in terms of senators and representatives, and how much inflated, outsized influence small parts of the country get over the vast majority of people. That's
But
why we can have the situation in the
But
first place.
even then, you can bring this down to
Yeah,
like
but
a
what
smaller
you're saying
level,
is
right? For
suppose-
example,
yeah,
if you let communities decide, right?
Well,
And you
there
have
you
like
go.
really racist communities or something like that. Those racist communities can make horrible racist decisions. The
So there's
point is,
multiple
at which
levels
point
of-
do these
yeah.
at which point do these decisions get to be made, right? Is it
That's a level of
at
generalities
which
analysis.
group, right? So
Yeah,
that's
you're
like
absolutely
that's a
right.
tough question. Like I said, like I don't think Brexit should have been put to a referendum because the majority of people don't understand like the implications of leaving or staying in the EU.
Then you don't agree with
do they?
democracy. I mean, I understand. So there are some things that shouldn't be up for debate, and that's what it means to have a constitutional republic, which outlines, for instance, individual liberties. That even if 99% of the people want to silence the KKK, we're just not going to do that because this is a right that, at some level of generality, we respect as a matter of democracy globally, and not in this particular issue, but overall. So I agree, some things should be off the table, although they're ultimately changeable through amendments or that kind of process in the United States. But if you're saying things like, well, the people don't know better and they should be guided by someone else, it's hard for me to think that you agree with democracy, because that essentially what you're saying
Well,
is that
again,
you don't
I do
trust
to
the
an
people to make
extent,
the
right?
decision for themselves.
But these people should not be entrusted with like the decision itself, rather than deciding upon who does make the decision. So, for example, like we have like the Supreme Court, right? It's not technically that's anti-democratic, right? Because these people are generally
No.
appointed.
Representative democracy is still democracy.
Yeah, I know it's still democracy, but
Yeah,
I'm not getting into the weeds, like which kind of democracy again. What level is this selected again? Would you say the Supreme Court is anti-democratic? Because the Supreme Court, in most countries at least, the Supreme Court is appointed, right? Should we get rid of the Supreme
Yeah.
Court? Now, obviously, that's ridiculous, right? It's anti-democratic. So, like having something that's anti-democratic in this case is actually a good thing because it
But the
protects
court was
other
put in there,
democratic
right?
rights.
The court was the thing that makes the court, at least in America, I'll say, for one is you could argue the Constitution itself is a democratic document. Why? Even though the Constitution puts limits on powers, it was enacted in the 18th century by the respective leaders of those states, and they all came and made this compact. And that is the original democracy you might be talking about in the Constitution of the United States. They set up the courts to be so there was, in some sense, a democratic push for limits on democracy. And so what's controlling there in your analysis? Is it democratic to put in anti-democratic aspects of government? I think that ultimately, yeah. I mean, it's okay for us. Most of the lower federal courts in the United States are enacted by statute. I would say that is democratic, even
Exactly
though
right. So,
those courts are
so
making
then
decisions.
again comes the question, right? Again, you can have like democracy to enact things to limit democracy and enact these things, right? But the question then becomes, at what point do we enact these limits, right? So again, we can accept that some level of democracy enacting against democracy is good, and at what level should this come in, right? Obviously, like saying like only certain people get to vote, right? This is like ridiculous, right? You're taking away like people's rights there. That's ridiculous, right? But then again, taking it down to, should people get to vote on like this issue that people don't understand that may impact them like in a very serious way? Like I don't have to give a specific issue. I'm sure you can imagine an issue in which like giving people the right to vote on this might be a dangerous thing.
UK is also a horrible example of democracy because it is so unrepresentative in terms of its first past the post system for your elected officials. Even though at the Brexit referendum, it was in fact a referendum, I believe that if you had more representative members of parliament in the first place, maybe you wouldn't have gotten that far. Maybe
like more constituencies?
No, like the conservatives in your, but it's not just conservative. I know for Brexit, Labour, there's a big distortion in the people who get elected versus like who was voting where, right? So overall, you might have an outsized representation by conservative party as opposed to like what the total polity is voting for. And I think that is a problem that that faces the UK just like it faces America. And those leaders ultimately shape public opinion as well. I think you can come at it multiple ways. I mean, a lot of the systems that are leading to these decisions are anti-democratic, even though they appear to be democratic. The first past the post system is one I'll point to. Another one in the United States, like I just mentioned before, is the allocation of states and the fact that small states have outsized influence in government.
To be clear, as far as what we're actually talking about, it's obviously not pure democracy. It's not pure mob rule. It's clearly we're talking about a representation of the people. So we can talk about what is representative, what is like a better way to represent the people. But the question, at least from what I understand, the more fundamental question is comparing this representation that we currently have to other systems outside of democratic representation. And so kind of a little bit of the roots of democracy. Socrates, I don't know if you remember that guy, but he was the whole picture of him drinking the hemlock. The reason why that he was forced upon that is because he's corrupting the youth. The reason why he's corrupting the youth is because he posed the question, the people you want in charge, if you're talking about a ship, you want the person in charge of the ship to know about the sea and how to actually be a captain of the ship. You don't want a random person, then you get lost at sea, basically. And the point of that is the people that you elect, they're the people who have the power. And so if they don't have the skill or the rationale necessary to elect the proper people, then you're losing the ship, is basically the argument. And so when we're talking about like anti-vaccine movement, we're talking about Trump, we're questioning the very nature of people who don't have sufficient capabilities, or and that can be debated what capability is to actually make the decisions to elect these people in the positions that make such large differences, sometimes irreversible in the terms of climate change.
But ironically, these people are small percentages, be it anti-vax or the climate change.
Trump voters,
That is true.
people who don't support proper inaction for climate change. This is not small. This is a whole
It's a minority, though. Trump won. The reason we have Trump in some ways is because we have the Electoral College, which I would say is not. If
Good
it were
point.
more democratic, we wouldn't have that problem with Trump.
I'm Pisco. I'm going to fight you on that one later. You brought up something. It's going to be a point in the other direction.
How do you fight that?
No, I'm going to fight you on this later. Don't worry. But first, Ty is here joining us. Thank you for being here, Ty. Please, you can introduce yourself to the audience and then introduce your thoughts.
He's muted. Muted. You're muted. Ty, you're muted.
Professional streamers.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was muted. Okay, so fair enough. Anyway, I apologize for being late. I was under the impression I was going to be available earlier than this, but I'm glad to be here because actually I've been in my inner monologue. This has been killing me. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Tiberius D. I study in economics and political science, and I kind of lean into right-wing populism. All right, we'll table that. We'll get into my personal thoughts. There's three levels I kind of put this into. One is principle, one is practicality, and third is just kind of like where we're at now. The principle is innately looking at liberal democracy. To me, it actually comes off as a kind of a bad idea. I'll table that for a second because I'm going to get back into that. But in a general principle, just a system without any kind of discrepancy on competence, innately by principle would actually bother me. However, getting into phase two, the real important thing here is I think history has shown itself that liberal democracy, while having problems, is probably the most beneficial for all mankind because of the fact that whenever you take away somebody's voice, you take away somebody's vote, you systematically eliminate any kind of ability for them to go to participate in the political system, to have recompense for what problems that may address them. And so I think history has definitely shown that if you take away people's votes, they're going to get railroaded because the people that are in charge will not look after their interests. They will look after their own more likely. And I think that has shown itself time and time again. The third thing that I get into is just where we're at now. I'm on the right. I've got family members. I'm literally having a phone conversation right now about giving my aunt intervention because for some reason that's the smart fucking thing to do. It's hard to believe in democracy sometimes. It really is, particularly in the days that we are now where politics is upside down, where liberals are acting like conservatives and conservatives are acting like liberals and nothing fucking makes sense anymore. But I think we'll get through this, but it's one of those things that we're just going to have to reinvent how we fucking operate. And that happens every now and then. And unfortunately, we're in year 5 out of year 12 and going through this process. And when the 7th party system is here, I think it'll be a lot better, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. So anyway, do I get to fight Pisco now?
I don't know what the hell you were just talking about, liberals acting like conservatives. But
Yeah, that confused me too.
I saw Pisco's face like.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems, I don't know what. I guess that's not what we're here to discuss, though, and Prime will get mad if we go down that route.
Yeah, fair enough.
My question for Prime is the thing that you cited, right? You cited Trumpism. You cited anti-vax movement. Those all, Trump was not elected with a majority vote in this country.
Yeah.
If it were more democratic, it would be Hillary Clinton in office. The anti-vax movement, as annoyingly large as it is a minority of this country. So the problems here seem to be with minorities that have outsized influence on government, not with majorities.
So let's focus on the Electoral College for just a moment. Electoral College, I think, is an example of a point in the other direction. Electoral College, the problem of that is not unknown to the American populace, right? This isn't a new concept that hits like a thunderbolt when Trump was elected. In fact, it happened before with George W. Bush, right? Yeah. His first election was affected by that. We have 2 presidents.
It's been done 5 times now.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, but within this, like, the lifetime of like the majority of people in this nation, it's happened twice. But what happened afterwards? There were complaints. There were protests. How could this happen? Right?
Why can't we solve it, Prime?
Hold on.
I mean, why can't we solve it?
1 second. But like, complaints about why this happened, and it was explained to individuals. Okay, well, this is our system, and the only way to change it is an amendment, right? Like the Constitution gives us a path, right? Like, okay, you don't like this part of our system, then you have the ability to change it. Not a fucking thing was done. As soon as we are, as soon as we're finished, like with an election, it's gone. It's out of our minds. Right? We'll complain about it for a little bit, right? But then, as a people, when we recognize a crisis within the system, a crisis that gave us Trump, we didn't actually do anything, right? And no one's talking about it now. No one's talking about it. So, like, that's an example of democracy failing. There is a crisis, right? If the people actually thought that is something that could be if this is something worthy of being addressed, then they would. But they don't until next time. And then again, oh, how could this happen? How could this happen?
I'm sorry, but the Constitution makes it too hard to pass an amendment to fix that. That is a problem of too much focusing on states in our Constitution. I think that the problem is that you just can't get the requisite amount of states to agree with it, because a lot of states are Republican, and that's just a problem. Oh, assuming, by the way, I don't actually think that you need an amendment to change it, because there's other methods, I think, which other states are pursuing.
That's true,
But even those other methods, which are easier, haven't been done because so much of our governmenting style revolves around mini democracies in the form of states. And so that, I think, is a failure.
So it's a compound failure. It's a compound failure, is what you're saying, of democracy, right? So it's still
a failure of.
No. I see what you're saying, that the process isn't like a straight up vote to get rid of it, right? Yes, it's not a popular vote to get rid of it, but still, our democracy, or quote unquote democracy, works on multiple levels, and it's failing on the more localized levels. And if you focus on those many democracies, you'd see a lot more failures, right? The failures you're talking about in terms of like anti-vax will become manifest if you drill in just at as Sneaky Debate Man was discussing before, right? That's just more examples, many more examples of democracy failing. So I don't give it a pass because, oh yeah, well, the exact process isn't a vote. It's just democracy failing on from different perspectives.
I want to tag in on this.
All right.
Could I hop in?
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of agree with Pisco, and I don't. And that the part of it is that is the electoral, or sorry, not the electoral college, is the amendment process screwed up? Maybe. I mean, it's supposed to be a high barrier threshold because they don't want change to be easy. When it comes to actually getting rid of the electoral college, the number one reason there is that because Republicans are under the impression that if they were to get rid of the electoral college, they were going to sign off on it. They couldn't get elected to the presidency. I'm going to say that that's absolute bullshit, but the problem is the Republican Party actually believes it. And until they actually are convinced that that is not the case, that actually opening the field makes it better for both sides, they're not going to let go of that, because power abhors a vacuum, and they're going to hold on to power any and every way they can. I've actually openly advocated that doing this as a Republican would actually help the Republican Party, because it says we want a fair fight, we want to engage, and we're going to do it fair and square. But instead, what it openly says is like, you know what? Republicans are cowards. We don't actually want a fair fight. We're running away. That doesn't do them any favors.
There's something I want to reply to as far as what Pisco is saying and kind of how the conversation's been steered. You loaded a term. You said something being more democratic. What that actually entails is a concentration of power within cities, major cities, that dominate most of the country. You have to understand that the nature of the system, whether you support it or not, is one where even farmers have their ideas and what they want represented in the country, no matter how large these cities get. That is the nature of at least the current U.S. system. So even when you say more democratic, you're talking about something being specifically like a popular vote.
Yeah, I strongly disagree.
That analysis
I'm sorry.
I think, very messed up on two levels. One is I understand that you're just describing things right now. I don't know that you're assigning a normative weight. To the extent that this is a normative analysis, that we should have any particular occupation have outsized influence, or any particular, rural versus urban, that as a normative matter they should be represented more. I totally disagree. I don't think that anyone has a right, just based on where they live, to have a better say in government, or more.
Hold on, they're talking about the
matter.
best way to represent things and how to change things and how you would change representative democracy, as opposed to,
why should farmers get more of a vote if
state.
that's what you want? Do you want farmers to have more influence than one farmer has more influence than one city dweller? Is that your position as a normative matter?
If what you mean to say is, should a farmer, I guess, should their opinion weigh as much in means of Supreme Court decisions or whatever, as much as a city dweller,
whatever,
then yes, of course.
If one farmer in the country and everyone else is city dweller, because it's just a city state, there's one farmer, you think that one farmer should have just as much say as a million city dwellers?
They live different lives. So
city dwellers,
if city dwellers set all the standards, then the people in other places will have their societies completely altered in ways they don't want at all. Their vote would be then.
So will you answer my hypothetical? Do you think that a rural person, by virtue of
already
being
answered,
rural,
already said, what do you mean?
Okay, and so the second question is, America doesn't do that, because America doesn't favor you if you're just a rural person as opposed to a city dweller. It favors smaller states. And so rural.
Yeah, I was using farmer, not like a literal individual, but representative of those
farmers in
states.
Texas. Farmers in Texas are screwed. Farmers in California are screwed. Why? Because they're screwed by the Electoral College. And there's more farmers in California and Texas than there are in Rhode Island. So what's going on here is not increasing the polity based on your profession or based on your, it's just all revolving around these arbitrary state lines and how many people happen to live within those lines. But it's not giving this benefit to rural voters. And I think it's shameful that you should say that we should value someone just because they live different lives. Presumably you want government to help the most people, not just equally different kinds of people.
You're mistaking what representation means versus what it means. I guess I was trying to say farmer. Maybe that's too broad. But I'm a little confused, because you can clearly see, based on which groups vote for who and where, that some states lean towards one way and some other states lean towards another. And that distinction is very clear. I'm a little confused.
Deal with what I just said, right? So our system of government favors small states in terms of at least for the Electoral College, also for the Senate makeup.
What does favor mean? You're using another loaded term.
So favor, it's legitimately favored. Like, so for instance, Rhode Island has the same amount of senators, and that affects their presidential say, even though their population is many times less than what it is in California.
Yeah, that's what I knew you were going to go to. You're saying the population is many times less, therefore favor, but no, it's therefore working as intended.
I understand
this conversation was whether or not this system has issues. You have to understand that was this conversation. So you can, and I'll say it for a third time with you. I'll say for a third time that even if you really want to focus on ways to improve the current system, that's a whole different conversation. And I think
I am agreeing with you. I'm providing a description of how the Electoral College and the Senate makeup in the United States favors small states. Do you not agree that that is the case?
Favors and intended could be this. Like it can be intended,
it is
and then
intended
also
to favor small states, and it's intended that way because they wanted small states to get on board to sign the damn thing. So you would agree then that the Constitution in those respects favors small states.
And is it not also true that somebody in like a smaller state who's voting has more voting power than somebody in like California?
Yeah, it's just obvious. Yes,
I mean, and it's like 20 to 1 in terms of the actual like.
But I want to know if Dari agrees.
It's literally
Dari answer that.
Like cheese and milk.
Yeah, Dari answer that, but we do have to other people.
So it's a complete misfocus on what the actual point of the system is. It isn't that more people equals more votes. It's these people infinite X amount versus these people X amount. and whatever in this case, before we have like senators, we have the electoral college, whatever that amount is what is representative. If for example,
There was one person in Rhode Island that should have the same vote as 10 trillion people in California. Is what I'm hearing.
Yep. That's the system.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wow.
All right, let's go to Nathan. Give that a try, and then Valency,
What?
Okay.
and Ty.
So
You can say ooh. So wait, what does that mean? Does it mean
You're not a Democrat.
that
You're not a
means-
Democrat.
that means what?
That's
How
not
about
democracy.
you could move there, and then suddenly your vote is worth way
That's
more.
control of
Wait, no.
the
You could
minority
move
rule.
there. Wait, you could move there then. Why not just move there
Is
and
that
then
really
all of a
your
sudden-
argument?
all of a sudden it's two?
That's
But
Listen.
I'm asking you how you think power
But
should be divided.
then
Suppose
listen,
that no one wanted to
this
move,
is-
or
this
there's
is
only room for
important.
one
I'm
person.
trying to get your mind on the right track here. So that person moves, then there's two people who are rulers. Is that right? There's two rulers.
Suppose that there's not enough room for whatever amount of people you want.
Wait,
there.
what if that one person? What if that one person is then complete opposite to the other person?
Suppose the state is just one neighborhood.
This
right?
isn't like a good gotcha that you're trying to say.
It's not a
The,
gotcha.
the voting power that you're talking about that exists and you're using favored and all these loaded terms, that doesn't actually impact the country in the way that you're trying to load it. That's the issue.
Actually, it does. It affects the outcome of presidential elections. It affects what Congress does in major ways. It is in
major ways that people don't actually act on, though. That's the issue.
I'm sorry. We don't have President Bush if we don't have the Electoral College. We don't have President Trump if we don't have the Electoral College. These are things that are dispositive in the governance of our country, and it's because people, I'm sorry to say, like you, Derry, are offering these, frankly, I think, fatuous analyses that we should care just as much about one person in Rhode Island as 50 million.
That was your extreme hypothetical, of course.
But you bought it. I mean, you bit the bullet and you said, yeah.
Okay, then 10 trillion people in a single state, guess what? They're dead from all kinds of other reasons for that kind of concentration.
All right. We gotta.
If you're going to use the extreme hypotheticals, then you have to accept the whole of it.
No, we gotta move on. All right, Nathan.
yes. Okay. So personally, I think that the idea that a person you're not equaling the playing field. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is like the point you're trying to make is that like the Electoral College as it is, or the way the Senate is, equals the playing field. It doesn't. It dramatically demotes the political power of people living in the bigger states. Absolutely. The fact that a majority of people in this country can vote against two presidents that were some of the worst to ever sit in that office, and historians agree on that. Okay, the fact that could happen is super undemocratic, and we talked about like how to make democracy more efficient. My solution was to make it slightly more democratic. Now, I'm not saying everything has to be done by local councils the anarchist way, but like maybe not having a system where an unpopular person that doesn't even get the majority of people in the country to vote, maybe they shouldn't be the one leading the people. And also the idea that these people, the farmers, the coal miners in West Virginia, the farmers in the Midwest, they're not getting represented by the Republican Party. Absolutely not. They're just not. I mean, sure, they vote for them, but they also, you can look at the polling data. People in West Virginia, while it's a red state, support the $15 minimum wage, but Joe Manchin does not. People in Florida, which is one of these bigger states, went to Trump, but also voted 60-30 in support of the $15 minimum wage. The point I bring this up is like the idea that like these Republicans, frankly, but even Democrats to a degree, slightly less, are representing people, especially people in the middle of the country that are struggling, is absolutely ridiculous. But I did want to address a point made earlier. There's been a lot of overemphasis on competence and how dumb voters can be, and I get that. Like, you see people at like the school board meetings, and it's frustrating how like stupid these like parents can be, and they pretend like they're majority. But the reality is they're not the majority. Most people are fine with masks. Most people are fine with vaccines. And if we had a more democratic way of doing things, actually, when it comes to the school boards, I think we're doing just fine. Like if we actually went with the people.
Brexit, though. Like what? Like that was
Well-
completely like everybody, one person, one vote. Nobody got more votes than less.
Okay,
Like, and a
well,
bad decision was made.
The
Like, a
thing is,
terrible
like,
decision.
I think Brexit is a unique case, very British case. But in America, if like I know like I like looking at things issue by issue. The good choice, and perhaps I'm biased because it's my policy positions, are usually the more popular ones. And when we see them done on these what are they called, amendments during these elections, like in Florida, like in red states all across the country, legalizing marijuana, raising the minimum wage on their own, we can see that the people generally choose good ideas, at least in America. It won't always be that way, but it most of the time is. Now, I don't know what's going on in Britain at the time. I was 15 when Brexit was happening, so I was more involved in the American election at the time, and sometimes democracy you goof up, but maybe, you know what? Let me be real. So when it comes to Brexit, my solution would be like stuff like international involvement in organizations should probably be done like a more government level and shouldn't be left up to the vote, unless it's something like super detrimental. But like certain issues, I'm gonna try to hurry up. My bad. I'm getting sidetracked.
Well, yeah, right. So, like, you agree that, like, not all things, like the level at
Yeah,
which
yeah, not all
democracy
things.
should be upheld,
I definitely
varies from
believe
issue
that
to issue,
everything
right?
should
And
be.
like, and then
Yeah,
you get the question, right? Who gets to decide at what level these things are done? Should we do that democratically, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody's
So
gonna vote
wait,
for it.
to be like, I'm not advocating for everything to be done by amendment or referendum, but what I
No,
am
no,
saying,
I know, but
yeah,
like, there is a level at which, like, we should, so, like, some group of people, regardless if that's the whole nation,
yeah,
the Supreme Court, the senators, whatever, right?
yeah,
At some point, we have to decide, like, this group of people gets to make this decision, right?
yeah,
Which begs the question: how do we decide which group of people gets to make which decision, right?
yeah.
And I say, like, well, do we do it democratically? Like, what is it? It's a
Well,
question on a question. It becomes the watcher of the watcher, doesn't it?
I like representative democracy more than like direct democracy. I would advocate for a government
You're
to
not
have
actually
that.
addressing what he's saying.
But
what he's
no,
trying to
I
describe
am
to you
gonna
is that
address it.
there's-
I am gonna address it. I am gonna
Okay,
address it.
then what are you
Okay?
talking about? I
So
prefer.
my solution would not be to put it directly to the people on everything, but my solution would be
You're
to
not
give
addressing
more
what he's saying. You're talking
power.
about
Wait,
direct democracy versus
wait,
representative
buddy,
democracy.
wait. My solution would be, what I would do is to get rid of the influence of money in politics, so people generally have more sway, more power.
You're not listening to what he's
And-
saying.
Thank you, Pisco.
He's talking
Wait.
about the difference between like a unitary republic
I'm-
and local control and whose democracy matters. At what level of generality are we looking? If we're just concerned about Alabama, there's a lot of democracy
interested
there.
in changing federalism or anything like that. I'm fine with the federal system existing. My only interest is making sure that the money gets out of politics, so generally more popular policy positions get pushed, and unpopular or politicians that push unpopular policy don't get elected because they have the most money. That would be my solution to making the system much more effective.
Lobbyism is based, though.
What is it? What's based? I'm sorry.
Lobbyism. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, gotcha.
Valency, it's your
I
turn on
wanted
each
to
way,
go.
and then Ty.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also want to yell
Okay,
at
yeah.
Pisco for something else too later on.
Yes. Please do. Okay, I'm just kidding. So I wanted to just add two things, like very fast, about the America and then about the Britain. The America is like the one about America. When it comes like to voting, from what I know, like about the Republican Party in specific, they push away the populace, right? Especially like from what I've read about how some people who don't, like black people who don't vote Republican because of how racist Republic Party is, they vote Democrat even though they themselves hold conservative values, right? Like they are pro-life and whatnot, just because that like the Republican Party is basically racist, right? That's like the first thing that I wanted to note. The second thing was the UK. I don't think it has to do with democracy that the average Joe is voting about these things. I think it has to do why the average Joe is voting Brexit, for example. And you would see that it's not something that you should criticize voting for. You should criticize why is he getting misinformation for him to decide voting Brexit, right?
I don't even think that, right? So like, again, these things are incredibly complex, right? So for example, like geopolitical affairs, you can do a doctorate in this. In fact, you can do multiple doctorates in this, in multiple different disciplines in like geopolitical affairs, right? These are like very, very high level things that like only a small percent of the population are really going to understand the impacts of this, or even be able to make like an accurate prescription or accurate guess at what is going to happen with these things, right? So
Yeah.
again, right, I'm not advocating that we like abolish democracy and leave it all to like technocrats,
No.
right?
I'm
But the
not.
point is, right, at some point, expert opinion is incredibly relevant and valid, and not everyone is
Yeah.
going to be able to comprehend these. So regardless
Well-
of what like being informed
No.
is, I don't think you
Real
can
quick.
have an entirely
No.
informed populace.
Real quick,
I think
real quick.
basing
No, my
it
turn. No, my turn. Okay.
basing it upon a level of informedness or like intelligent population is kind of irrelevant, because you're just not going to have. It's just never going to happen, right? You're not going to have everybody having like a PhD in geopolitical affairs. It's just not going to be the case ever.
It's not even about that, right? It's about like sending them the correct information. It's about like these PhDs like having the capability of persuading these people. And how do you do that? It's just not by spreading misinformation, right? The way that people, I think, who voted Brexit, they were
But even with the
spread,
correct information, you can make the wrong choice because you can't comprehend that information, right? So
Sure.
even with not misinformation, you can still make bad choices.
I do not know about that, because like the average Joe in other countries like Scandinavia or Canada is able to make the right decisions thanks to him getting a good education. And thanks to not him, I'm sorry, them.
But the anti-democrat would say something like this. They would say
Definitely.
the reason you're pointing at misinformation, and the anti-democrat would say, well, you only have misinformation because you let this press off the handle, and that you wouldn't have misinformation if the government was in control of everything and we just decided everything. That's their response to that.
Which press exactly?
That's like
so
the authoritarian response.
I think that you're validly
press,
pointing
though?
at misinformation.
No, I
in
mean,
the context
I'm sorry,
of the UK, right?
I mean, sure, but like the press is like, is it social media press? Is it like private press? Is it BBC?
Whatever
like
you want to call it, right? So
No,
you were
because-
calling out misinformation in the context of in democracies and saying, well, you can't really blame democracy for the misinformation wherever that comes from. But someone might say
Sure.
to you, how do you de-link democracy from systems which tend to accompany democracy, like free press and free
Journalism.
exchange of information, journalism, which are very much associated as the benefits of democracy. And now we can't cite to those same things that are hurting us in some context. Listen, I'm ultimately on your side, but
I know.
that's just a response.
The rebuttal for that would be like, first of all, the misinformation that has been spread wasn't being spread by public, what do you call it, by like public journalists or like independent journalists. It was spread by people who weren't journalists, right?
Or
in
foreign
social media,
actors maliciously,
or foreign actors like Russia with the intervention in, for example, or if in the anti-vacuna thing or like the anti-vaccine thing, the what do you call it, the it was politicians who were spreading misinformation, not journalists, right? And whatnot. Like it's the journalists.
That's kind of bad though, because the politicians are elected popularly. So I think the best argument is that this is foreign actors influencing your media. But in the United States, we have a lot of domestic actors who are behaving very poorly.
Even then, right? Like this misinformation angle, it doesn't make perfect sense, because even with the correct information, you can still make the wrong choice. Right, because these things are very difficult to understand, and even if you only get good information, right, you still might make the wrong choice. It's still completely possible.
It's about also,
and this only further begs the question. What's considered misinformation? Who gets to decide what misinformation is? How would we clamp down on what misinformation was? Right, there's no way of possibly doing this. You can't be like, you are a bad actor and that is misinformation. We're taking you off the air, right? Because that is authoritarianism. That is anti-democratic. Right, you can't do that. Like it's inherent to the issue, right? And again, I'm not advocating for technocracy, but I'm saying, like, for example, having expert opinion and not allowing the public to vote on things that are important, and not allowing democracy in some cases, like much like Pisco said earlier, right? Having anti-democratic institutions within democracy is actually beneficial to maintaining democracy.
I mean, the expert opinion that you say is basically who decides what the expert opinion is would be the same rebuttal, right?
Yeah.
We have them, like we know them, right? So it's like, bruh, still, I will push on this. Like, if you are pushing the what do you call it? Who decides what? I mean,
who decides what's right? Who decides what's good?
I mean the majority here, right, in democracy. But here is the thing: the like with the expert opinion, you can make it persuasive, right? Like I know that the correct opinion, or like not the opinion, the correct information, you can make it persuasive, right? Isn't that like most of politicians' job to be? Like to say, hey, this is why we should give trans rights, right? We have the whole backup like data to back this up. right? But it's about like being. I agree with you in a sense. Sometimes, like some people try to play the race card, which puts off some moderates, which like because they are conveying it wrongly, right? In democracy. But sometimes it can actually work, and it can help, and it can like create more welfare systems for them and whatnot, right? In the context of America, for example.
Again,
Well,
I think
even
there's
then,
an
you can have this like
overemphasis.
good information, have this correct information, and like there are two like major things that make me misanthropic, right? One, you can have all the correct information and just be completely irrational with it, right? Have you ever tried convincing, say, for example, like a hardline Christian that like actually trans people they're fine, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them, or like gay people, there's nothing wrong with them. You give them all the evidence, all the facts, all the data. No, gay people bad, right? There's no convincing them one way or another. And even if they like, even if there's somebody who's not just outright prejudiced like that, they can still make the wrong decision because they can't comprehend the information.
That's a people problem. It's not a democracy problem. That's
Yeah,
true.
but
Bureaucracies.
the democracy is made up of these people, right?
No, but
So if
that's
these
true of,
people
like,
can't make correct decisions, so the
communist-
democracy fails in.
That's true of
inherently.
the Soviet Union. I mean, so much of the criticism was that these were bureaucrats who didn't really understand what's going on the ground, and that is like, I think, a problem with people that is properly laid at the feet of humanity, not at democracy.
This
Well,
is what I was trying
so
to
how do
get
we
at
address
earlier.
that?
So every
How
single
do we address
political
this? There
system.
needs to be a healthy mix, right? There needs to be a healthy mix of both expert opinion and public opinion, right? The people's opinion, I guess, should be informed by the experts, but the experts, again, in some cases, and again, it would vary.
You're
an
begging
issue to
the
issue.
question, and Valencia pointed it out, which is who decides what is the correct expert opinion. That's the problem that you're ultimately dealt with. Which is
Yes, but this can be applied to like any topic in this whole branch, right? Like
Yeah.
who decides, right? We just get into watcher of the watcher here. We get like who decides what is good. Well, we'll have this oversight council. Well, who picks the oversight council? This people. Well, who picks the people who pick the oversight council? It's watcher of the watcher, right? It's like can't resolve this.
Well, let's go to.
That's also one pitfall.
I want to hear Ty. Ty's been waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Getting in on the experts conversation, at least in any kind of way, the reason why I tend to actually lean into elitism to a large degree is because a lot of institutions have bars to clear. They have methods of self-checking, what have you. The scientific community example is peer-reviewed. Pisco is going through becoming a lawyer. You have the bar exam, that kind of thing. I like institutions because usually they put a higher level of standard on doing something than separate than the society writ large, which largely is mostly an open field, particularly in the age of the internet. So on that mode, I definitely qualify for there. Do you have any kind of license, registration, that kind of thing that says, hey, I have demonstrated some level of fucking competence? I wanted to get into Darius' thing, although we've kind of already driven back that. My big thing with democracy is that I think one of the big things that democracy does wrong is not necessarily in the fact that it says these people have this vote against this, that you're going to have political coalitions. You have to account for that. The problem is that it's in how we divide power between, you guys were getting into it. We have cities versus rural folks. Democrats used to be across the board everywhere. You had urbanites that were Democrats. You had rural folks that were Democrats. You had the same thing for Republicans. Why has this fundamentally changed since about 2004 to where the Democrats are now almost exclusively an urban party, and now Republicans are almost exclusively a rural party?
I don't
Obviously,
if I can answer, like,
I've been trying to get in
I don't
for a
care.
bit.
I'm gonna finish what I'm saying first.
yeah,
Okay.
I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, I set that up because two things. Number one is that we have moved in what the political gravity of the country was. It used to be class. Most people who were Democrats were voted for it because it was a party of labor. Most people that voted for Republicans was the party of the wealth, or were very socially conservative. It's now moved into how we socially operate. We haven't really figured that part out. But as far as how we divide power, just as a quick example here, and I know I've done this rant before, and some people think it's a meme, we fucked up how we divided power. You look at some of the settler states, the New England states in particular, they're really small. My dick is bigger than some of these goddamn states, for Christ's sake. You get into California, get into Texas, this has a completely different geopolitical entity between Northern California and Southern California. Southern California has to worry about getting water. Northern California doesn't. Why is this in the same state? It makes no goddamn sense. Unironically, I'm going to end with this. Huh?
What are you talking about? Like,
What do you mean? What am I talking
all
about?
states should have the same thing going on?
No. California should be broken into two states, starting from San Jose, South San Jose downward. I don't want none of them motherfuckers in my state anymore. Okay, ship them off to a different place. No, fuck that. Jesus Christ, it's been voted down so many times too, because that is the most cringe goddamn bill that's ever come across. And that's another example of something like, holy fuck! Every time it comes up on the ballot to actually split apart California, like it gets shit on, but it's scary that it's there. Every single time you're sitting there thinking to yourself, you know, until the votes are in, are we really about to be split up? I don't think so. The polling, you know, is showing that we're not. But like, still, that shouldn't be on the fucking ballot.
Oh, I absolutely disagree fervently. You've got Southern California, which main concern is actually water rights and how to handle that. You've got Northern California that doesn't even have to operate with that. They have to deal with locomotion and transportation and how they're going to integrate themselves into the country at large.
Wait, I'm sorry. So you think that cutting off Southern California from the northern water is going to be good for the southern? I'm a little confused. What are you trying to get at?
No. Where does Southern California get most of its water? It's from the Colorado River, which goes through Arizona, goes through Utah, you know, that kind of thing, right? They have a completely different method of operating because they have to deal with living in a desert.
They have different problems than other people in their state. Who cares? We're talking about
no, that's a huge fucking issue. Why do we not draw our borders on where people actually live and what their problems fucking are? This is like to me.
The people of California have been asked about this. They voted to stay as a state. Why are we talking about this?
So are you saying like California should encroach on Nevada, maybe, or? I mean, maybe I'm just being a little hyperbolic. I'm still a little confused.
I'm sorry. I have to say this. I'm sorry. I have to say this. This is literally one of the reasons why Turkey is actually invading Syria right now, right? Because of the river that we have linked to Turkey, bro. Just because they have like the.
That's an political. That's a political issue. We're not talking about political issues. We're talking about.
It's a geopolitical issue, and as a person who is a geopolitical analyst, I run that. I think
we need to talk about riparian rights or water rights or waterways. That's a like on the ground issue, and we're talking about foundationally what should we value in our.
I'm arguing that should be a fundamental foundational issue to how we separate power. When we say, hey, yes, 100%. When I have to deal with how I'm going to get water, that is a fundamental operating way in how I deal with my living life. If I'm in an urban center of 10 million fucking people and water is scarce, that is going to be completely different than I'm living in Indianapolis.
You want a water-based government. You want a water-based government where people who are living next to water have better
aqua government. Let's go.
Yeah. Look, you can
Bill Packman, baby.
You can snowball me for all this, but no, I'm serious. And it's not just water, right? If I'm a farmer in Indiana or I'm a farmer in here, yes, it makes sense that I have to operate differently than a fucking coal miner in West Virginia. I have different ideas and processes in how I live my life and also how I run government, how I run my economic structure. Yes.
Isn't that why, like, there is 50 states and they operate differently and have different governments?
We should go even further, and now I guess every neighborhood becomes its own state because everyone's got their own problems. I guess.
I think what he's saying is household. I think what he's saying is California should actually absorb Nevada and Colorado and possibly Arizona. I'm down with that. Actually,
people in Brooklyn have different problems than people in Manhattan, and therefore we should just make them separate states and part of different states. I mean, how far does this principle go, really?
Okay, Pisco, that's where the question lies, is where does that go, right? Because is it something that is just like, hey, you live in the next town over from me, you guys have a factory, I'm a farmer, we shouldn't operate on the same level? I think that actually, in some regard, this is why we have county governments, which is we have locality governments and city governments, which is why we have state governments and all that. These divisions were done on purpose. I don't have a problem with that. But some of these divisions that we did were probably wrong. And
you're just mad because people. I'm sorry, and I know Derry hasn't got a chance to say it, but I want to give floor to Derry. But you're just like Derry. You're mad because people you care about are outnumbered and they get a less say in government than the many. And so ultimately, I don't think you or Derry are.
No. Why do you draw that conclusion?
Because you're like, we should care more about the people who are more affected by these whatever riparian doctrine you're having, and they shouldn't be controlled by their overlords from on high, the 10 million in the city. And that just means that you have a preference for a certain kind of voter, and just say it. I prefer rural folk.
I openly said
weird, but
no, this is bullshit. I openly said earlier, hey, look, I'm in favor of opening up of getting rid of the Electoral College. I think we need a knockdown, drag-out fight between all the people who can vote when it comes to the system writ large, that being the presidency. So you can't throw that bullshit at me, Pisco. I'm not going to let you. On the other
I
side
just
of that,
did.
though,
I think it's true. I don't. I think
Yeah,
you have
but
a
you did say that
disdain for
earlier,
city
though.
people.
That
You
is
said it,
idiocy-
Tiberius.
No, dude, that's
You
idiocy.
said you don't like city people.
Huh?
Have you not? You don't like city people. You don't think the city people should be controlling what the rural folks are doing.
Okay, two things.
That's what will
One, have I
happen if
said
you get
something
rid of the
along that
electoral
lines?
college.
I admit that I have. Okay, so you can hang me with that one. The other side of that is that I am advocating. Look, I have a county government. I have a city government. It's supposed to do what it's supposed to do. I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. What I am advocating for is why do we have all of these states that gives 10 senators to fucking the New England 5, which is smaller than fucking California, when they all have the same interests, but California does not? That doesn't make sense to me personally.
What
That
doesn't make
what
sense to me is that some place like Massachusetts would have just as much say as a place like Rhode Island in terms of the Senate, because I think we should value people and not land.
And I can agree with I can agree with that more than
Let's
what we
abolish
have
the
now.
Senate.
Abolishing the Senate is going to be a hard.
I want to hear Derry. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Derry.
yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
but like, it'd
okay.
be nice.
Yeah, Derry, I do want to still yell at Pisco about something, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, so it's there seems to be like a repeating issue, and you know when I say something and then someone goes off and then the other person goes off, it's really hard to actually complete the thought that I had like 10 minutes ago. But
Sorry.
no worries. It's just the nature of the panel, right? So there's a few things that people brought into, like things that can influence democracy, like misinformation, foreign interference, things like that. But there's a difference between speaking of like the kind of the current state of representative government and how it can be improved and nuances, and there can be improvements. I don't think I want to repeat that like twice. That's fine, but understanding kind of like the current system and how it is functioning is more what I was talking about. And if we're going to speak about the fundamentals of why it is the way it is, because I thought the whole discussion was trying to figure out, is there a better way? Is there's a simple hypothetical that people got to get to, is you have...
Oh, I love this. I'm on board.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we're speaking about democracy, like inevitably the higher population is going to be more correct than the lower population. So
I like to believe that.
It's the...
True. Unless you're in charge.
The higher population is always on a higher plane.
Yeah, so we're talking about like the founding fathers and kind of like some of the way they built up the system and everything. So 3 people, there's 5 people, right? And 3 people are wolves, and the 2 of the people are the sheep, and they're deciding what's for dinner. Yeah, I think I say it because I feel like everyone's heard that like a million times. But the idea is that like I feel like the concept is so simple. Is that the majority can eat the minority if there isn't a representation. That's the point of that.
But might it even be so simple that it's reductive?
But no, we shouldn't have it the other way around, where the minority is ruling the majority. I agree that there should be limits on what the majority can do to the minority, especially when it comes to like violating individual rights, like the right not to be eaten.
How do you like just give like any example?
So for one would be, I think, freedom of speech. I think the First Amendment is a fantastic example of a limit on what the majority can do. The majority cannot, even if they want to, silence 20% of the state that thinks.
Yeah, but what if the majority says, you know what, screw that rule? Now
that's why we make it harder. No, but eventually
you make it harder. Okay, well,
no,
it doesn't matter if
there's 99%. Yeah, they should win, right? If you're saying that one person should win against.
No, we're talking about more realistic numbers. Like
okay, so what I'm telling you,
like
at a certain level, if it's truly the will of a super majority of the country, like
I said 60-40. The numbers are super clear here.
That's right. That's still a significant majority. I would say like the
things
limits
that are super majorities in the government.
There would be limits
allowed
on majorities' power because you still have your state and local governments, which would be decided by the majority of your state.
Here.
Nathan, you're going into the weeds about our particular style of government.
I know, but like if I'm concerned about the real world rather than just the philosophy. I mean, there's other things. There's freedom of speech, like you said. There's other these undeniable rights that the Bill of Rights gives us.
But you're distracting us by talking about, well, you still have federalism of states, but that's not the essence of what he's saying.
I literally took the time to preface, like, yes, there are weeds and there are things that can be more efficient, but I was trying to bring it back to some of the philosophy.
is you can think of horrible things that can be done to the minority, and okay, I can say that there's a limit in the supermajority, but what if there actually is 70% of the people who want to kill another 20% of the people? What do you do then? It's a hard question. I don't think it should be impossible to change these limits on democracy.
This whole topic is very difficult. Yeah, for sure. Because we're talking about like disillusionment with the system. We're talking about the efficiency of the system.
This conversation is hard. Meta-ethics.
It should be harder to infringe on those salient individual freedoms that we care about than just a bare majority is all I'm saying. Call that a super majority, call it a 70% majority, something. You should put a limit there. But it doesn't, you shouldn't take that, the fact that we cannot draw a clear line of where that should be, to be an indication that therefore the minority should be able to dominate the majority. That makes no sense to me. And I think that what we have in America is a danger of the other problem, not a majority oppressing the minority, but really of the minority of the population oppressing the majority in the context of vaccines and in the context of Trump, which I guess Prime is about to yell at me about.
Abortion.
I have a quick.
My response then to be like, how do you feel about the last election? About how close it was? Do you feel like it wasn't? I don't think
it was close. No, I mean, if I had my way, it wouldn't be close. I mean, it was obviously even in the electoral college victory, in terms of just the raw electoral votes, I think it was a significant lead for Biden. But what you're saying, the right votes in the right places could have changed things. I don't know how many tens of thousands of votes is all it would have taken.
Some places it was like
it shouldn't be like that, right? I think it's theoretically possible to elect a president on like some 28% of the vote or something. It's theoretically possible. The fact that it's possible to elect a president with that small of people voting for him is shameful. That should never be a possibility in our system of government.
If we look at the pure numbers, if we completely eliminated representation at all and look at the pure numbers, it's not like it wasn't 28%. They were like just the pure numbers were pretty close.
I know, but
this isn't a super majority. It wasn't 80%. It wasn't 80% to 20% though. It was
it was
millions. It was like 8 million voted more for Biden than Trump. Right?
Yeah, which is 52% of the electorate.
Yeah, but
it was literally a 52-48
scope that it's not just like 20 million people in the country. Come on.
Okay,
but it's a lot of millions.
That's not the only way it manifests itself. The presidency, that's just one way it manifests itself, and it was not a blowout for Biden, even in the popular vote. I agree with you there. But in terms of how it affects us in the senators' representation, that is preposterous. How can it be possible that in this country, a state like Wyoming has 2 Republican senators that have just as much say as 2 senators representing California? It is ridiculous to me it made sense maybe in the early stages of the Republic when you were trying to have buy-in from the small states and you were trying to have people believe in the Union. I can see a historical reason to have this outsized influence by smaller states. But now in this country, which is so unitary in its spirit, I really do feel that people are more plugged into the federal systems and federal problems. To me, it just doesn't make sense anymore to have this outsized representation from small states. And it's not favoring the demographics that you claim to care about, which is rural folk. Because if it was caring about that, then the rural folk in California would be more represented, or the rural folk in Texas would be more represented, but they're not.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to a tie. And then Nathan, I do want to, okay. So I'm going to actually jump in after Nathan, because I want to do something.
I just want to take 2 shots of Pisco as questions. The first one is, so you know why we have a bicameral legislature. Are you convinced that we need to get rid of that at this point?
No, I don't know. You can have bicameralism and have a senior officer and a lower officer, but it should be proportional to some degree.
So exclusively for both on population is where you would want to go with it?
I would, yeah. I would keep both houses because I think there is something important about having regular elections every 2 years. I think that's important. But there is also an importance of having a senior office that has a longer tenure, that there's more stable. That makes sense, but it should be proportional. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I can deal with that to a large degree. The other one is that do we need to have a conversation on basically the meta-ethics of our democracy, which is, hey, no matter whether we win or lose, you can't do this to us. Property rights is an example, freedom of speech. Basically, we have the Bill of Rights, right?
Yeah,
we need to have a conversation.
Okay. Yeah. I love the First Amendment. I think it's really important to protect people from excesses of majorities as well. I do think that's a problem. I think you and Derry, it's possible you guys ought to be legitimately concerned about tyrannies of the majority. But I just think that we swung so far on the other side of that pendulum.
No,
where
that's
the
not even my
majority-
concern. I'm just
That's
trying to
not-
outline the
No,
political
Pitt-
science.
It's
No,
why
Pitt-
places like California feel largely misrepresented
Yes.
federally.
Yeah.
I totally
Like
agree.
it's because we have such an outsized population, and for the amount of power that we actually get in terms of senators, House members, etc.
I hate that you
But
said that. Okay, just real quick, just to Pisco.
I'm sorry,
No,
California's so dope, but
no,
like
no.
a lot
I'm
of
not
people
saying
live there.
California's
And
bad or
Texas
bad.
too. And
No, no.
Texas too. Texas
True,
is
yeah.
screwed too.
I
Okay,
guess
so
it is.
look, regarding
I'll never
what
admit that.
Pisco is that I largely get where you're going with that. I would love to actually meta ethic that conversation, but that's probably not purview for here. And as far as Jones, I love you, but literally, I'm like, hey, look, I openly said with my previous statement about splitting California, you would get more representation, and you shot it the fuck down.
No, we
So
wouldn't,
what the
dude.
hell
If
are
you
doing,
if you
man?
split it up, all that would happen was that you would split it up into have
Republican.
now one of these fucking little tiny California states would be
yeah.
a Republican state.
So
Oh,
Like,
Tucker,
there's
on.
actually
Mhm.
large
Exactly,
no.
swaths of
There's
red
no
in
way-
California, and
The
and
only way
places.
that you
last time I went
possibly
there, there was 2 Confederate flags.
Also,
Wait,
your
wait,
logic
wait,
sucked,
wait,
Tiberius, because your logic was like
Wait.
they have different issues, therefore they shouldn't be part of the same polity. And that, at its absurd, is stretched to its limits. Is just absurd that we should never include people as part
most
of the
things
same polity that
stretched
have
to the
different
limits are
issues.
absolutely absurd. Come on, dude, don't go down that train. That's some bullshit.
But the rationale, everyone
Splitting up
recognizes it as
California is the fucking like the most extreme thing
Okay.
you can do. What are you talking about?
What? All right,
it's
so
you taking your toys and
never-
going home. That's what it is. That's what the greater Wyoming people want too. I think with respect to like Oregon, they don't like democracy when they're in the minority, so they want to take their toys and go home. For years, Democrats have had to suffer under Republican majorities in those smaller states, and the solution isn't just make new polities because they have different issues.
Okay,
Sorry.
so just to answer that, and then going back to Jones real quick, I 100% get where you're with that, and you have a different solution to my approach, and I respect that, right? Because you're not a dumb person by any stretch of the imagination. I think you weigh some
Don't
points.
test me.
My-
Don't test me.
Just calm down, Field Marshal. I'll get to you, okay? Now, as far as where I'm going with Pisco is that my thing is that draw the lines more on for me being geopolitics, the geopolitical issues, because I think that's the core where you start at. You don't agree with me? Fine, let's hash that out one-on-one. Okay, back to Jones is that, look, I don't think no matter which way you split California, you're gonna get Republicans elected in any kind of Senate seat, which would give you 2 more
What?
Democratic senators.
You know how many Republicans are in There are more Republicans in California than in like all of
And
these
they're
rural
outnumbered
states.
2 to 1, dude.
Yeah,
What
you
the
just cut
fuck?
it. Have you seen the gerrymandering stuff? It's ridiculous. If you know where people live, it is absurdly easy to cut around and make. The Democrats would never have control of any Congress if you cut them in the right way. If you give unlimited cuts.
Look, 100% yes. Like you're right on that front. It's about how you cut it. The problem is like in the majority of the ways that you could cut California.
Wait,
because
how do you think
Republicans-
that? How do you think the state bill that comes up every whatever it is years?
It's
how do
probably
you think
rigged.
they cut it? Do you think
It's
they
probably
cut it?
rigged.
You think they?
Look, I'm
they're like, oh
100%.
yeah, no, we want Democrats.
Let's
to
be
be-
fair.
The whole thing that the whole
sell
really we just
myself-
want more Democratic senators. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the whole
No,
thing.
no, no,
I
no.
bet if they sold it like that, maybe they would actually get it. Thank God they're not fucking that.
No.
It just wouldn't go over. Hopefully, fuck.
No,
Hopefully they're not watching
Jones,
this. Actually, holy
God
shit.
damn it. I love you, and you're probably right. And I will sell my side of the aisle out on that, is that it is largely done every time with that because they're drawing the lines in a partisan manner that would get them votes. However, I'm not concerned with drawing the partisan line. I'm concerned with drawing the line on what the problem is between these 2 localities. That's how I wanted to do that. Now, Pisco thinks that's full of shit and an absolutely dumb as hell. Fine. We can argue that later, Pisco. I'm going to get off this horse because I'm monopolizing time.
So
Thank you,
let's
Brian.
go to hold on, let's go to Nathan, and then I want to jump in. I gotta.
Okay, well, I think the whole conversation about the California statehood or splitting California is really silly, considering that the idea has literally been pushed multiple times and it's been shot down multiple times. The people of California don't want it. It kind of reminds me of like this post I saw the other day where it showed, hey, if only these districts in California voted in the referendum, then Gavin Newsom would have been recalled. And they were all the Republican rural districts. Like, no fucking shit, okay? If all the Democratic states in America were the ones that decided an election, you'd have a Democrat win all the time. I mean, actually, I take that back. If people were represented in America, Democrats would have won every single election since 1988 in presidency. But I mean, I think that the situation with California is a great example of democracy working.
Wait, no, 2004, Bush won the majority.
Oh, okay, I got it wrong there. Yeah, my apologies there.
Sorry.
Was looking.
We
No
also
problem.
have,
No problem.
Arnold before that. Like, I can't do a good Arnold. I'm sorry.
Well, no,
But, like,
that's
yeah, we had him
California.
before.
That's California.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. But in all seriousness, I think that that's an example of democracy working. It's not splitting. People do not want to split up the fifth largest economy in the world, one of the best states in the country, California, and the people are being represented in their state, not being split up. Now, many of my solutions to make a lot of things better would be to expand democracy. So here, instead of talking about a vague idea, I want to talk about specifics. Puerto Rico voted to become a state. They had the referendum. They're not a state yet. They should become a state. And who knows? Maybe it could be more Republican senators. Maybe it could be more Democratic senators. I'm more inclined to believe it would be more Democratic senators.
Puerto Rico's a little different. I'm glad you brought it up, actually. It's a great
Yeah.
point to show you exactly how messed up and in many sense anti-democratic many of our systems are in America, and how much better we would be if we improved on some of these democratic elements. That people in Puerto Rico, they're American citizens. They have zero representation in the federal legislature and exactly zero representation with respect to the presidency of the United States. Absolutely unjustifiable. And we're worried about the particular cutting up California in four ways. Tiberius, you have an entire polity which is just not included in Puerto Rico or in any of these other territories, or indeed the nation's capital with respect to congressional elections. And you can't spare a thought for them instead of your whatever weird dynastic strategy to get
you didn't
freaking
ask me
farmers.
what my opinion was on Puerto Rico. I'm 100% okay with them joining the union.
Okay.
I was gonna bring up DC. One of the best.
That's right, Pisco. Shut the fuck up.
So
okay,
Nathan, go ahead, finish.
Oh yeah, final point. I did want to bring this up because this was discussed earlier. There's a lot of talk about again competence and how dumb the populace can be. I'm just gonna keep it 100% with you. The politicians we have now are like some of the most educated motherfuckers in the world. Like, they're really smart people. They go to the best schools and they make really bad decisions.
I agree.
Marco Rubio, exactly.
The Cruises. Yeah.
Marco
That's
Rubio.
what I think. Chef's kiss. Smartest individuals in the world. My goodness. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh my goodness. Not only is she gorgeous, but she is also a fantastic person. I would love to have a beer with her one time. You know what I mean? Sounds fantastic.
The point being is that Marco Rubio, I don't know what school he went to, but I assume a nice one, right? A lot of these politicians go to like Harvard and Yale, and then they make tweets like saying that the 3.5 reconciliation package is Marxism, like Marco Rubio did recently. I don't think that the solution is necessarily to improve like the situation with democracy or to improve conditions in this country is to just trust the quote unquote smart people. And going issue by issue, I don't need to go to the specifics, but I can just say broadly progressive policies are popular. Frankly, if we chose a random person out of like all the people in our country, most likely you would have someone that'd be marginally good on the issues. Okay. And they'd probably be better than Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or any of these Ivy League graduates. So I have more faith in the regular people than I do the politicians at the moment.
So, okay. I wanted to not get too trapped up in like these examples of democracy failing and more focused on the, oh my god, there's like a motorcycle like right now outside my window. Really annoying. But
scripted motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. So, Pisco, it felt to me that you were hiding behind, right, the structures of our democracy, right? The structures of our system, rather than
criticizing them.
Yeah, rather than looking at the problem with like the source, which would be the people, right? We have people who, like other people are saying, are maybe not so well. They're not plugged in. That's really the focus on. They're not plugged in. It's the apathy of it all, I think, is the bigger problem. It's less that they choose badly. It's more that they don't even bother to choose. So when I bring up this thing about the Electoral College, it's not to go into a whole thing about like is the Electoral College good, the benefits of it, or anything like that. It's more that it's an issue that people recognize, right, and have not addressed. Aren't thinking about it, aren't talking about it. If it becomes a problem again, right, well then it'll be too late, and then people will complain about it, and then people go back to ignoring it. So that's really the issue. So like the fact that the Constitution makes it difficult to pass an amendment is secondary to the fact that people aren't organizing to make that actually happen, right? Like, or not bothering or anything. So like that's the problem with democracy, is that these people like generally don't care. This is, and part of this is Doobie's argument, but he says, why not take this off the hands of the average Joe, right? They're working hard. They are involved with their families. They don't have time to dive into all these things. Even if we because an argument some leftists say is that, you know, if we gave them better workers' right, better worker conditions, like less time actually in the office, right, more time with family, that you would see people like re-engaging in politics. And that's definitely true for a certain number of them, but I doubt we'd ever have the majority. That would be the bullet that makes the majority of people engage with these very important issues of our time. So if that's what human the majority of the citizenship the majority of citizenship acts, well then why not just take the load off their shoulders and give it to someone else?
Yeah. So one thing, the first analogy I would use on your, well, people know about these issues, and I didn't want to talk about the Electoral College per se, but more about people's failure to change it in view of a problem. My analogy to that would be, imagine that a person has no legs, and then you criticize them for not being able to run a marathon. The system makes it too hard for people to change the Constitution unless you have incredible support from the states, usually state legislatures. And so therefore, whenever there's an issue that has that an amendment passes for, it's something like, let's increase state sovereign immunity, and then all of our states can get on board. Or let's do something like prohibition, which is a social issue that transcends borders. But when you're talking about issues that change fundamentally how much power these small states are getting, and you need these small states to be like, yes, we want less power in national politics. It's like, how the hell are you supposed to get these people to agree with that?
I apologize for bringing up the Electoral College, right? Look at any problem that is not being addressed, that you don't have the vast majority of people, a major issue, you don't have the vast majority of people dealing with, right? That doesn't require a constitutional amendment.
It's about healthcare or something?
Yeah, or something like that.
So those issues typically are like very hard to solve. Like healthcare is a complicated thing. And
is it?
I'm sorry, but no one has a one sentence solution for how to fix healthcare in this country. It doesn't exist.
Medicare for all. Medicare for all.
That is not an idle task. I
didn't say it was. None of democracy is, though. None of it is. It's all important. Yes. Like, you're asking, well, these things aren't easy. Well, yeah, the project of building a society is not an easy thing. Yeah, civilization
but
takes
there's also
effort.
a problem that sometimes people are just split on questions, and there's a huge divide. Another congress that came up was with respect to the Supreme Court. Someone asked me, like, how can we have all the important cases come down 5-4 and have these incredibly split? I think Ben Burgess asked that. How can you ask all these important cases come down 5-4? And I'm like, well, you have an incredibly split country. Of course, you're going to have an incredibly split court. And I would say the same thing with respect to healthcare. I don't think it's at all clear that 55% of the country thinks that we should get rid of private health insurance.
Hold on, but
Look at
fucking gun rights, right? Like common sense gun reform, whatever the fuck that is, right? Like common sense gun reform. We have like a 85-15 issue.
That's
right?
one of those individual rights, the anti-majority thing that we've already put in the Second Amendment.
No.
Well,
This
gun
is the
reforms
thing.
don't get rid of gun
like,
rights.
Look
though.
at whatever the issue is.
Arguably, they might.
You can
I mean, that's
quibble about the issue. It doesn't matter, right? Like when there is an issue that people say, like, "Hey, this, I believe in this," right? Like this is my stance on this, and then they don't take any action to make that thing happen, right? Don't actually engage with politics, right? Well, then what are you supposed to do? Or even just ignore any particular issue. Just ignore any particular issue. That's fine, right? Voting for the president, just voting for the president, just engaging with democracy, and then more than that, because it's more than just the polls, right? It's like the work that happens afterwards. It's organizing. That's also part of democracy, right? That's an integral part, just as important as the ballots. Sometimes, if not more important, is organizing, getting people. But people aren't doing that. Most people don't engage at all. So even if you separate it from any particular issue, or you can have any particular gripe with, right? Like you still see people not engaging. So then, why not just take it off their hands?
Because there's another problem as well.
Wait, real quick, like 10 seconds. I just want to say that if while we're talking about election and people getting involved, is that a reminder is that last election cycle there was more involvement in it than the last over not ever before, but the last about 110 years or so. Yeah.
So
okay.
That's a point that I might have brought up. But to address Prime more substantively, why even have people vote on stuff if they don't seem to be engaged? Well, one answer to that is we don't just measure the usefulness of a system by how many times we have to make reference to it, but as it being there on a check in case something really, really, really messed up ever does happen. And so one of the reasons why I think the Supreme Court is worth it, and I keep thinking back to that conversation with Ben Burgess, is it's not just there. I mean, we can quibble about what cases the Supreme Court got right, what cases they got wrong, but the fact that the Supreme Court is there is stopping otherwise bad legislation, not in the context of abortion and not always perfectly, but it's stopping bad behavior just by it being there. Same thing with the people. The fact that the people have a chance to vote and a chance to like get rid of all the people in charge, that by itself, even not using that power, is stopping some excesses of government. It's like someone who has, I'll use the context of a gun as we were talking about it. If you have a gun and you're a guard, right? You have that gun. And you don't even have to use it necessarily to get people to comply with you. That, I think, is another reason why you might have, it's important to have democracy, not when things are good, but when things are bad, you have a tool to escape. And when people are engaged, they can prevent some of the worst excesses. Did any of what I say make sense?
No, I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't. So you're saying, well, when things get bad, people will be involved. Right, and you can see,
or that it's stopping people from government actors from doing bad things by it being there. The knowledge that some
I don't know
could get activated. I mean, it's true of a lot of issues. It's true, for instance, of abortion really activates people. It really does. And after Roe v. Wade, there's an activation. Another one is Trump-related stuff. There's been a huge activation of the Trump base in a way that it's seriously affecting how Congress people talk. And so people do get activated about some stuff, and it does affect how politicians talk. It's just a sleeping giant, and people are scared to wake it up sometimes.
No,
isn't that just like accelerationism though? Like things have to get significantly bad before people like decide they're actually going to get up off their asses and do something. Like accelerationism as a philosophy generally is not good because things then have to get sufficiently bad as like a requisite for anything to happen.
Spoon, it's not that we want those things to happen, but that is the reality in which we face. Is that sometimes people say, "I'm not going to involve. I'm not going to evolve. It's not my thing," and then suddenly shit hits the fan, and they're like,
"So Prime offers the alternative. Well, actually, instead of waiting for them to get involved and the proverbial shit hitting the fan, how about we just say, well, we don't need you to get involved to stop this shit."
And harm isn't always reversible.
Then they will excess.
And harm isn't always reversible. So again, dealing with the problem of climate change was a problem that deals with like future issues and harm that's oftentimes not directly felt by the individual voter, right? That problem is a huge. It's a
And which countries are
humanity
the most
shaping?
Which countries are the most proactive on acknowledging climate change an issue and trying to
China?
reverse their pollution?
Is it
Well,
China?
China,
I might be
It
wrong.
is China, yeah. China contributes
China
most,
recently, but there's been a big push in Western democracies, not including the United States.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the answer is China. China's the answer there.
No,
I know.
And-
First of all,
I'm sorry,
I don't
but
know.
it is China.
and-
It
and-
contributes
No,
more.
that's
Like it has more
and
green
then-
energy.
China still
invest
pollutes
more.
more than any
But-
country, am I
but we
incorrect? I mean, I know
still-
they have the most population.
and
Yeah,
the-
but they're
the
making more
people-
efforts to rectify that.
And the
though.
people are easily fooled, right? So we have a party, right? The most destructive party right now, the most dangerous party within the world, right? The most dangerous organization is the Republican Party, simply
I
because
agree.
it is stalling our actions on climate change. Right now,
Mhm,
it is stalling that, and this is a crisis that humanity is facing. Humanity's greatest crisis.
And they wouldn't have as much
is
power if we
that.
had more democracy. I mean, if they didn't
But-
have all the power they had in the Senate and in the House of Representatives by virtue of the fact that we have this
Then
anti-democratic
why don't we
senator
do something
system.
about that? No,
Because
no, but
the change
even
that
more than
system is itself anti-democratic.
But even more than that is that the Republican voters themselves have been fooled into thinking this is not an issue that is to be concerned about, right? Because most
Yeah,
people
that's a big problem.
who aren't plugged into these things, who aren't paying attention, or who just don't happen to be culturally inclined, right? Because it's not that so many Democrats simply know better than conservatives that have a better idea of
That's
climate
the
change.
cost
They're
of-
just
of free
culturally
speech.
inclined.
That's
But-
I'm sorry. That's the cost of free speech. What do you want better? I mean, would you rather having free speech is going to mean that a lot of crap is going to be out there? Would you prefer
I'm-
the government to have like some sort of social system?
I'm positing,
or like some kind
I'm
of-
positing whether we have something better than democracy, where you have learned individuals who can examine these issues, right, and not be so easily fooled by misinformation, by like
bureaucrats.
by
It's like technocracy.
by
Is that what we're
Exxon. Yeah,
advocating?
by
I mean, like, I do agree there should be a healthy amount of technocracy. Like, expert opinion is like very good.
I thought
Like,
you were a
like,
populist.
Again,
Let
like
me-
for example,
if I
using the
could-
example of like China,
wait,
right?
let me-
China bad. Don't get me wrong, all right. But China, they do fucking get shit done over there. They really
God
do
damn
get
it!
shit
Shut
done
up,
over there.
Spoon.
China
You're not-
bad, but sometimes
Aren't you guys like
China good.
Marxists and revolutionary?
Yeah, all right.
Wait.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not like China stan, right? But they do fucking get shit done, right? That is largely the fact that they just have like one big centralized government that has been in there for ages and nobody opposes them, so they just get shit done,
They
right?
get
It
shit
just so
done,
happens that like
sometimes it's
China,
the wrong shit though.
Yeah, don't
so-
become
exactly.
Fox
There we go.
News.
Right there comes like the double-edged sword, right? China does get shit done, but sometimes the shit they get done is not good shit, right?
Yeah,
and
don't
thus
become
there
Fox
ends
needs
are
to
not
be
ends
and
unto
be the one that's
themselves.
criticizing
point.
Bernie.
Plus,
Like,
Pisco's point, there needs
you guys
to
remember
be
that?
like this healthy balance, right? Yes, there
Wait,
needs
what?
to be some level of expert input, some level of technocracy, some level of centralization, and people who actually know what they're fucking talking about, doing the things that need to be done, right? But at the same time, you go too far with this, and you end up with like an authoritarian hellhole, right? People don't get represented, and as a result, very bad decisions get made. You get genocide, you get shit like that.
You
right?
guys want perfect
Yeah,
efficiency, and I'm
no,
telling
no,
you,
no,
perfect,
If I-
perfect
hold on,
efficiency
so-
requires concentrating
each-
power in the hands of the small, and I think that has.
We don't know. I don't want that. I want a healthy
Wait,
balance.
hold on. You're talking
I
about
have
the
balance,
if you're talking about the
right?
actors in any given different political system. Then, if you just say the answer is you have good actors, then no problems would probably.
We wouldn't
exist.
need government.
If-
Yeah, we
If you,
wouldn't.
if you had an authoritarianism, that could work. If like the king and his close advisors, they were all
best
really
person.
good-meaning people and really intelligent,
fucking
that would work. But it's not just it's not that simple.
Maybe they don't have to be
Jeff-
well
I- I
made.
wanna-
want to respond to the
Hamilton.
I'm
point
cutting
that
the film.
Prime
I'm with
brought
Pisco on
up.
this one, but Spoon, I've got to throw one at you here. Okay, is another issue that we need to address, not necessarily that the technocrats or the people who are proficient, the experts, have the power, or as much as that should they be listened to and trusted? Because I think one of the biggest things that we have failed in the Western world is that the experts are now absolutely distrusted, that they're not listened to, that they don't know what they're talking about, that kind of thing. I think
I-
that's the issue that we actually
Why
need
do
to
you think
contend with.
we
I
failed
think
at
this
that?
strikes,
I
this
if
strikes like
I-
an interesting problem, right? So, like I said earlier,
Massive
even
amounts of
people who have the
disinformation.
perfect information, right? Even people who have the correct information, and like again, this is like a very nebulous construct. The correct information can still make bad choices, right? And so, in some cases, this decision should be kept purely to the people who actually understand the consequences of the actions or the thing that they're doing, right? However, again, the fault of this
Like
is if you
Chancellor
do that.
Palpatine.
Oh
Like,
god,
Right,
damn it.
exactly. Again, so I agree with you, right? So the fault of this is when you do have that, then these people can make bad decisions and nobody gets a fucking say in it, and then bad things happen, right? So
and
again,
you throw up your hands like, oh, I guess we'll never do that
Exactly,
again. And then
exactly.
so
So
I
I- I-
a
so I-
little hard, and then
so
oh,
wait,
now he
balance.
really needs
Exactly. So a healthy
concentrate.
balance has to be struck here, right? The question is not whether we should have pure technocracy or direct democracy, right? Obviously, there's the middle point here. And I think everybody agrees on that. We're just being silly about it. The question is not should we have one or the other. The question is how much and in which scenarios, right? Because it varies from decision to decision. Like, for example, I staked my position earlier on Brexit. We should not have had a referendum about that. That was a ridiculous thing to do. Again, like I said earlier, should we have a referendum on abortion, on gun control? Again, sometimes the popular positions will win out, but the point is threatening such serious issues with the potential of a loss is actually really bad. It's like a really bad thing to do, right? And it like perfectly
You're begging
demonstrated
the
in the case
question.
of Brexit.
You're begging the question. The whole point of having the referendum is to decide what is right. And for people who listen, I
Yes.
disagree with Brexit vehemently, but there are people who just think differently to you. And they think
Exactly
that
right.
I don't
So
mind taking
the
the
question
economic pain just to
becomes
be Britain by ourselves or the UK by
exactly.
ourselves.
So the question is begged, right? Not should we have complete technocracy or complete direct democracy? The question is begged: in which decisions should we defer to technocratic decision making, and in which cases should we defer to
Yeah, but you're like saying
democratic
we
decision
deferred
making?
on the decisions that that the technocrats will agree with me, and we'll defer the popular
Yeah,
decisions.
obviously.
the ones
Obviously, I'm
where
gonna
they agree
fucking
with
say
me.
that. Yeah, obviously, I'm gonna fucking say.
But
Who
that's not
wouldn't
the
say that?
point.
If-
Essentially, what it sounds like a lot of people on this platform are trying to do is let's make democracy shift in such a way such that my position always wins out. And I think that is
would
just
be good because my position
counterintuitive.
isn't really correct.
Of
But
his fucking
no,
base.
I understand.
Well,
I
people
understand
did
the
stuff.
criticism.
Tiberius did it. Let's maneuver democracy so that we cuts off Republicans that have more say or farmers that have more say. And now Sneaky Debate Man is saying let's cut democracy in such a way that the technocrats have all of the power with respect to issues that they're going to agree with me on, and the populists have all the power with respect to everything.
No,
because
because
I
I didn't get to the end of it, right? Because it begs the question, right?
I'm going to hit you over the head with
It
something.
begs the question, right? Who gets to decide when the technocrats have the power and when the people have the power? Because clearly there are benefits to
Got
both
to
situations,
give
right? That
people-
is the question.
1 second, Spoon.
Well,
Okay,
I-
Pisco, just to hit.
So
Just
very
to hit
quickly
you
because I
one-
got to get to Nathan and
No,
then,
yeah, 100%. I got you. Pisco, I'm going to hit you. I'm not advocating it's like, hey, look, we have to give it where these people have more power than these people. My advocation was where we draw the lines of power is important. Why is those people in a different locality than I am? Just on this fucking arbitrary line. I am literally 400 feet from the state of Illinois. Why? That is an important fucking detail. A very important detail, and I think it actually deserves some level of of discussion and saying maybe we fucked it up. Maybe we need to have a conversation on where we draw the lines and why we drew them in the first fucking place. Okay.
Yeah,
let's
okay,
not-
so-
no. Nathan's been waiting. He's been waiting.
Yeah.
Redraw the
Okay.
shapes.
Okay. Well, specifically with that redrawing the shapes, maybe that should be up to referendum there. Ask the people if they want their state redrawn. They'll probably say no. But
Ask
I kind
Colorado
of
if
do
they want
want
to be us. Or Nevada, rather.
Everyone be California.
I-
Let's fucking go.
Everyone be California.
Everyone will agree
I do-
to have the states redrawn, but then no one can ever figure out how. That's what we'll have to-
Exactly.
Nathan.
I do want to explore the subject that Prime brought up, right? So essentially, what you were saying was that one of the big flaws with democracy is that we have these people, and these people believe in these positions, but they're not acting on it. They're not doing enough. How can we trust democracy when the population itself does not care enough to participate in democracy? Is that essentially the point you were making?
Yeah, that's one of the points. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's reasonable, but I'm more aligned with Pisco in your guys' conversation. I think that the best way to get the people more active is to expand democracy further. and Pisco's might disagree with this, but like if we got the money out of politics and it was an equal playing field where more people could participate without the barrier of being poor or not well connected. Obviously, even in that system of connection, still going to play a factor in things like endorsements and all that stuff. But at least money won't be a barrier. So that's just one example there. If we had a system
money
where
is a barrier. I mean,
no.
Let him keep digging, bro. Let him keep digging.
Come on, Pisco, it killed us, man.
Got the excavator out here.
No,
Let's
absolutely
go.
not. I would love a money and politics debate, but that would probably take the whole debate. But but like other ways to expand democracy, like we said, giving certain places that don't currently have voice or representation, i.e., the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico, the ability to have representatives, stuff like that. I feel would make democracy more accessible to people, therefore bringing more people into the process. And I think we are already seeing this trend of people getting more politically active. I don't know necessarily if it's going to continue, but we saw it last election, as somebody mentioned earlier, more activity in 2020 than ever before, and I think that's a good thing. And I guess quickly on the money and politics thing, if we could have no money being a barrier and have more people, regular people, run in local office, state office, or even federal office, I think that would greatly improve or increase the populist involvement, or by populist I mean like the people, the population's involvement in our politics, because there's less systematic barriers preventing them from being a part of it. And I think essentially expanding democracy is the best way to solve the problems with democracy that Prime was proposing.
You can run for local office.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait, all those things happen already and definitely do not increase engagement. Not for me.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
I gotta disagree. No, sorry, I gotta disagree here, because like this is bounces off what Pisco was saying. When there's an emergency, people will show up. Let's look at the African American population just for a moment, and like the voting rates there, they increase dramatically when there's a threat, a publicized threat. And that part's important. To their right to vote. Then people show up, like, okay, well, like I'm being told that my vote might be taken away, or that it's in danger, and so I'm gonna be there. But that's not a way to run a civilization, right? Like what Pisco was talking about, this like idea that, we've seen these certain crises, that that have come through our democracy, and then that's like gotten people to get to the polls, right? But that's only if it's a public thing. Trump is a public, like Trump was a big blaring alarm like to the country, saying that something is wrong, please address this, and people responded, which is a good thing. That's great.
Well, I would say
hold on.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No problem.
Yeah.
And they responded, but there were so many threats to our democracy that happen in the dark, in the quiet, that no one ever, because even if articles are written about it, people don't address it, right? If it's not something that breaks through the regular, that breaks out of just like political space, like political, like if it's something that's only been discussed in the politics section, in the politics section of a newspaper or of TV, right, rather than anything else, then people aren't going to address it. It's not of a concern, right? And it has to be something that transcends that. But most issues and big issues, right? I'm very curious as to how many people are paying attention right now to what's happening in Congress over this infrastructure bill, where what we have the opportunity to do is allow Medicare to negotiate with drug companies. That's huge. That would be a huge change in people's lives. But how many people are actually grappling with this and its implications? Not many. Sorry.
Two responses. First response.
Could I respond to Brian real quick? Because I was going to, but I was waiting for him to finish. Real quick, one of the ways I think you can increase voter rates is to
Get money out of
implement
politics.
No. That's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say one of the things we
It's so
could do
rude.
is implement Australian-style compulsory voting. That would definitely increase voter rates 100%. Not 100%, but that would increase voter
Oh
rates
my God.
significantly.
I'm sorry. Look what happened when we tried to get people to fucking wear a mask. Try to get them to vote. They'd be like, "You're bridging my fundamental right to not vote." Like it would be fucking cataclysmic. They would talk about a second revolution. It would be fucking if Texas would try to secede again.
David, you're not really addressing his point is people are not engaged, and it manifests itself one way in lack of voter participation, but that's not the only way that it manifests itself. And he was talking about people not being engaged in issues. So you need to address his like fundamental.
Yep. With the compulsory voting point, I was specifically addressing the point about voter rates only increasing during times of crisis. If we want high voter rates in every single election, compulsory voting would be a good idea, in my opinion. But how do we get more people informed? Well, as cringe as it is to have, let's say, late night TV constantly talking about politics, I think something like that is perhaps a good thing. If we could have politics being more of a part of our...
You guys are all weirdos. Oh my God.
Wait. Fucking wait, dude. Hold on. If we could have politics continue to be a major part of our culture, continue to be a major part of consciousness, then I think that's a way that people would be able to stay politically engaged. And I think that as we go on in the next decades of our lives, people are not going to disengage from politics in the same way Generation X or the Boomers did to a degree. Now the Boomers voted.
I want to take a quick moment to think about how funny it is, the idea of like a bunch of Republicans attacking the Capitol with the message, "We don't want to vote."
This time it's going to be different, boys. People are going to stay engaged this time.
Damn it!
No, I mean, like, wait. In all seriousness, like, the main reason I think people are going to stay engaged is that, like, we've had 40 years of a lot of disengagement. We've had a lot of problems. We're in a situation where even when the economy was good, people's lives were not. We had people making 50% of people making under $35,000 a year.
Why are you mentioning these like policies? You're not making a stump speech to us. We're not your constituency.
Buddy. It's because I'm saying that I think people will respond, and excuse me for sounding like an ML or something, people will respond to their conditions, okay? If people are struggling, people will pay attention to the people that are proposing solutions to fix it. And I think we're in a much better position than we were in like the 2000s when it comes to political engagement.
So in response to Prime, first is on black voter thing. I actually think accounting for all factors like socioeconomic status, black people proportionally vote more than white people. You have to account for socioeconomic status and all that things. But the black voter base, proportionally, I think is highly activated, and it's one of the important minorities to the Democratic Party. On the issue of political engagement, I actually don't think, I think that we should have some level of political engagement among our people, but I don't think the optimal level of political engagement is that it occupies 100% of everyone's time and all of the airways all the time. People need to be. I think it's good that people are focusing on other things, on entertainment, on art, on their jobs, on their lives. I don't think that it's the maximally important thing that everyone know the intricacies of everything that happens and that goes on inside the infrastructure bill. And what's more, I think that people are highly activated oftentimes on these policy issues. But it's never been the case that we've wanted 100% political engagement on everything.
That's not what I meant. You obviously know that's not what I meant. I understand.
You say you want more. I think arguably our entire country has been toxified by like having everyone be hyper focused on politics. Like right now, everyone is focusing on Trump, on Biden. It is absolutely pervasive in our culture in a way that I think arguably is not a healthy thing.
I prefer engagement than disengagement 100% of the time.
I actually have to side with Pisco on that one, but I've got two things.
I gotta respond to this really quickly.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think you only say that.
I don't. Obviously, I don't want people engaged. I don't engage in politics 100%. I don't expect anyone to. Please don't. Please do not. And I don't expect everyone to know everything about every single issue. That's not the point, right? It's engaging with a certain set of understanding that this is, even just understanding that this is important. that politics is important. That model people don't get that. They don't engage. I've talked to these individuals, right? And like, this means nothing to me, right? That this is not something that matters, right? Whether it be local, federal, or state, right? Until something bad happens, and then they're complaining, well, why isn't the mayor handling this, right? Like,
That's how it should work.
But no, it's not. No, it's not.
it shouldn't.
Because we can't. Because what if the problem is that there's going to be like a giant.
You said these people are so dumb that we can't even trust them anyway, and now you're like mad that they're not engaged. Which one is it?
And that's another. All of it. It's all of it. It's all of it.
Well, but you can't be mad that they're not engaged and then mad that they're making dumb decisions.
When they are engaged,
There's some Ouroboros level things.
There
going
are
on here.
multiple levels as to why voters cannot be trusted or relied upon, right? Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? That they are unengaged or really fucking stupid, right? I know, it really sucks. That's what we're dealing with. And so maybe we look for something else.
I think you have a lot of really engaged dumb people, by the way.
I think to take a bit of a
the
Pisco
majority
point.
of people are correct on the issues, and it's good that they're engaged.
That's it, right? I think to take a bit of a Pisco point, you only want people to be
No.
more engaged because you think it means your positions are going to win out.
That is true.
I think that's what it is.
Let me actually talk about that for 2 seconds.
No, Ty, then Derry.
Appreciated that. Yeah, appreciate that real quick. So I actually had this notes from earlier. Two things when it comes to engaging new voters, and this is largely Prime. I think there's people that you absolutely can, and the problem is that some of it is leftist talking point, material conditions. They're working 60 hours a week. They don't have time. They're trying to take care of their families and all that stuff. That is the big thing that has actually moved me in more of a populist direction, because even I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to invest in myself, to put myself through school, to make myself a better person in my community, right? And that takes time and investments, and it's really hard to be on these panels and get all the requests that I do, and I have to say no because I can't. I don't have the time, and that's the same
You're
kind
so
of
popular, Ty.
I know I am. It's just great. And anyway, I'm just actually trying to level this. Is that there's a lot more panels I would like to be on. There's a lot more I'd like to be involved in. I have to work to pay off my mortgage, to pay off my car, and to invest in myself to be a better person in some kind of facet. And there's a lot of people that are just struggling their fucking ass off just because, what they have to go to, they have to go to get a fucking doctor checkup, and they're out $400. And I'll side with the leftists on this one. That is a serious concern. I'm with you on that. Okay, the other thing here, this is where I'm going against you, Prime, is that there's a lot of people that I absolutely talk to that you say you engage with just as well. Do you want these people to vote? They are some of the most reactionary, most disengaged people you could possibly
let's
imagine.
Take it away from them. Yeah, let's take it away from them. Let's take the vote away from
I disagree
them.
with that.
Now
I
you're
disagree
picking
with
and
that.
choosing.
I disagree with
Who
that.
doesn't?
What do you want then?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
from all
what
of
is
them.
this?
No, from everyone. from everyone. That would be it.
So you
For
are in
democracy.
favor of a dictatorship.
No,
or
okay.
Yeah, what?
Look.
What is this?
Okay,
Prime
my
Stalinist
ultimate
confirmed?
answer. No, okay. My personal answer is democracy. I've said this
Yes.
in my AMA just the other day. This is my answer to this, right? But if we're actually engaging with the problems with the system, it's the people. So I'm like pointing out all those issues, right? And so
On
yes,
that, I
exactly.
listen, I think the people. I don't agree with Nathan that the people are all this like amazing, wonderful people that like, oh my god, they're always right about. No, we have some
not
greedy,
always,
dumb people.
But I think
and they
that a
bear
majority of issues
responsibility.
they're right.
Okay,
them
but
on it.
I think it's really obvious. It seems that like every solution that you could possibly put out, right? It's always going to be a double-edged sword. Literally every solution is going to be a double-edged sword. Only these people can vote. That's authoritarianism, right? All of these people can vote. Okay, they're fucking stupid. They're going to make bad decisions, right? It's always going to be a double-edged sword, right? So the obvious mix is dulling both edges, right? You have a mix of these, right? You need technocratic influences mixed with, in some cases, like democratic influences, right?
Yes,
You need expert
yeah.
opinions combined with like the people having representation as well, right? There's a lovely mix there. We have it. It's called the House of Lords in England, right? You should just like fuck your fucking stupid Senate and that shit, right? Get yourself a parliament and stop
But the
fucking
people
around.
with the outsized, the only problem. Wait,
I
STM,
think so.
real quick. The only problem with the people who has outsized influence in this country, they're not the technocrats. The people with outsized influence in this country are dumb people,
Isn't
and
20?
the minority,
you're
they're
right.
the ones who have the
So let's move
outside
on to
influence.
prescriptions. Right, so
Yeah,
prescriptions, right? It seems we're all like for abolishing the electoral college. Okay, I think that's a brilliant prescription. Right, everybody, that's bad. It's anti-democratic, and it's only harming us. And it's not even technocratic.
Not Dairy,
which seems
not
to be like,
Tiberius.
Not Dairy,
I don't
yeah.
think
which
we've
is
convinced
no.
them.
Tiberius is on board with
Pisco,
abolishing the
I'm gonna
electoral college.
fucking
He said it like
Oh,
three
you did
times.
say that. Oh, okay.
He
I'm
said it
sorry.
like
Oh
three
my
times. Sorry, Tiberius. He's so
In
on
my
board with
glass
abolishing the
with
electoral
it.
college.
Facts. You're goddamn right.
He wants to get rid of it. So everybody's on board with that, right? Secondly, get rid of first past the post. You said this earlier, Pisco. Again, it's anti-democratic, right? Spoiler effect is very harmful, right? Replace it with, like, say, I don't know what you're in favor of, Pisco, but I think ranked choice, instant
Yeah,
runoff.
little
Seems to be
rank
pretty
choice.
effective. Little ranked choice. Little ranked choice.
That'd be nice,
Little
yeah.
ranked choice. That would be good, right? There are
Unless
other
you mess it
democratic
up like
reforms.
like New York, and now you have no one trusts it. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. The point is there are like reforms that we can put in place that would actually strengthen this, right? But this democracy has to be a mix, right? There has to be expert opinion in it. There has to be a technocratic influence, right? We need to preserve that technocratic influence, make sure it doesn't get corrupted with various checks and balances and blah blah blah. And then there also has to be a large democratic representation there, and representatives and direct democracy in cases and shit like that. You know, it depends on the level in which we're engaging. It depends on the case, right? Again, like, should we have a referendum on Brexit? Probably not. People don't understand the implications of that. But should we have a referendum on, I don't know, the redesign of our national anthem? Hey, why not? Go ahead. Why the fuck not? That's fine. It doesn't matter, right?
So you want people to vote on ice cream flavors, but not on like the general trend and disposition of their government.
That's bad.
No,
Ooh.
it depends. Again, depends what the level of that is. It really depends.
Who
Right?
votes
It
for
have
the
to be-
technocrats?
It sounds
Who
like you
decides
just
would
the
have
said
to be
technocrats?
give all the
case by
trivial
case.
decisions to the people and all the important decisions.
Well, it would
to
have
the
to be case by
technocrats.
case. It would have to
Yes.
be case by case. I just so
I'd
happen to
agree with
give
that
two
if Julie
cases
was up
in
for
which
that.
one was very serious and one was very trivial, but it would have to be case by case. There is a middle ground there.
Dairy.
Yeah. So there's a middle ground. I see you're gonna transition me good. So does anyone here not care about climate change? Just quick yes or no. You don't have to.
Oh no,
Yes.
I don't believe it.
Everyone cares about climate change?
I
I don't care in the way that I don't do a
No, no,
fucking
no,
single
just
thing
yes or no,
personally
just-
about
okay.
it, but like,
I say
Yes
fuck,
or just yes or no. I
fuck-
made that just a quick.
fuck
I want to
them
go quick with
polar
this.
bears,
Go,
is
go,
what
go,
I
go,
say.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay. It's all yes. All right. What if there was like some kind of council that made up of people who are climatologists and various other scientists in the field to be a deliberate expert group to inform people with political power? Does that seem like something that like you'd like?
That sounds
It
okay.
doesn't solve
Wait.
everything because I think that
No,
ultimately,
just yes or no. I'm trying to do this fast. Okay.
am I in favor of smart people coming up with solutions that they present to people?
Yeah. Bring
I'm
up
in
expert
favor.
opinion.
Who's
Yeah,
against
I think that's
smart people
agreeable.
coming up with
Yeah.
solutions?
It's fast. Okay. Okay. Cool. So that's something that Biden is trying to do, and also trying to get on an international scale and expand things like Paris Accords. However, guess what? That's only 40% of the country that actually
these
gives a
guys
shit about
think
climate change. It's not a huge issue, but all of us here who are talking about it care very much about it.
Exactly. So that seems to be
so
like a middle ground in which we should defer to the technocrats and not to like democracy, right? That's it. Like in that scenario,
there's a
again, like I
problem
said, it's
there
going to be case by case.
My point
This is
my point-
transformational change, and you need to have buy-in from the people. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Like if you don't have buy-in from the polity, then you can say all the guidance you want. It's not going to work the way you want to. If what you need from people is fundamental change in their behaviors and how we deal with the world around us, you need the private actors to be on board. Unless you want to nationalize them and force them to do stuff. And now we're having other conversations. Should we have a technocracy in charge of when to rescind business licenses when they don't comply with our Supreme Council's edict on climate change? You need buy-in from the people.
It's just
Wait, if
to
I
me-
can quickly respond to Derry, where are you getting like this 40%? Are you trying to say like 40% of
gotcha.
people
It's-
care
I
about
put it in
climate
chat.
change?
Yeah, I put it in chat. Yeah, it's
Because-
top 12 issues since about a year ago. Yeah,
Wait, so that might be like top 12 issues, but like
top
how
12
much of
issues. Climate
percentage?
change
But like
is
a
among-
majority, I know, but like a majority of people still support like green energy reform 100%. Not 100%.
No.
Yeah, like so, like if a majority of people, that's like still we don't even have to go to
Does the majority of people
technocrats.
support like carbon taxes or getting rid of carbon or getting rid of
that
oil?
number would be
how
a
you
lot
frame the
less.
question is
Wait,
That
wait,
number would be a
wait,
lot
this is-
less.
And
This
what
is-
does
wait,
support
this is
even
a-
mean? Are they going to do anything
Wait, this
about
is-
it?
Well, this is a Vox article. Maybe some people don't like Vox. That's fine. But they say they did polling in swing districts that showed the Green New Deal, the policy is popular in swing House districts.
These polls, you need to be careful the wording, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, also we need more than just I say something on a
YouGov.
poll. And
YouGov and Data for Progress,
ultimately,
yeah.
there's no such thing as a free lunch. And what is the Green New Deal gonna mean? It's gonna mean a short-term
20 million
financial
new
pain.
jobs.
No, but short term, it's going to mean also potentially, if we really want to deal with climate change, we don't need to just make like new energy. We need to stop using other types of fuels, and that means carbon taxes.
Yes.
That means reducing. That's going to affect consumers. That's going to raise prices on some stuff. That's significant, and people need to buy into that trade-off. And if you're just presenting like, more jobs,
it's a good thing
this,
that it's popular in swing House districts.
No,
42 swing House districts.
They're not internalizing. As soon as they can say that on a poll, but look at what happened with Afghanistan, right? You have majorities of people saying we want to get out of Afghanistan, and look at what it's done.
Even afterwards, they still supported.
We're like, oh, we should have gotten out of Afghanistan.
No, even afterwards, the polling data still showed people still support getting out of Afghanistan.
Well, I would wonder.
The question is not whether people support it. The question is, was that a good thing or not? Right? Should we should we allow people?
I'm assuming
give them the opportunity to buy into like the Green New Deal, considering like this is like a vital thing to continue the existence of the human race. Should we give people the option to say, no, I'm not going to buy into this?
But also, Biden's approval rating has tanked, and you could say it's because of COVID and it's not because of Afghanistan. But he's been totally lambasted on the Afghanistan issue.
I mean, you made the point right. Wait, no. You made the point right there.
We're not talking about approval ratings.
Real quick. You made the point right there. There's a million reasons why his numbers could be down, including spiking COVID numbers, plus the media smearing about Afghanistan. So multiple factors.
No, what I mean to say is that all I'm trying to say is that oftentimes these opinion polls don't internalize the cost of pursuing those policies. And people don't know when they're saying, yes, I agree to Medicare for all, or yes, I agree with Green New Deal, that it will, as well as providing long-term success and potentially long-term benefits, impose short-term costs on their ways of life or how they're going to consume energy in the near future. And so that's why I think that you should not take those opinion polls to the bank. And especially when we have a system that it does not, our democracy doesn't function by way of opinion poll. And we've already identified areas in which.
Well, that's the problem with our democracy.
And I agree
we should definitely work towards furthering democracy in our system. No.
That's what
absolutely not. Like I said, I want to see more Democrats win, and I want to see money out of politics.
Yeah, we know. The whole point of that
absolutely.
The whole point about that line of questioning.
The
whole point of that line of questioning on climate change wasn't to like dig into the best climate change policy, like I wasn't before trying to dig into the best ways to talk about gerrymandering. The point is to talk about are the voters like equipped to deal with the nuances of climate change? Do they know about carbon science and ozone science and the best ways to deal with that? Maybe the best ways to negotiate with like the Amazon in Brazil, and maybe ways to like fund it to stop like carbon from that's already
depends on the
like,
population.
And the thing is, no population, any significant population anyway, actually is so aware of the climate change science that they are aware enough to make these decisions, and it is beyond our current, at least American populace to care that much about.
Okay, American. The majority of Canada, which is a democracy, is aware of the climate change, right?
The majority of America is too.
No, I'm not sure about that. I think that there's a massive amount of disinformation that's been put out about climate change ever since the fucking day one when, who was it, Chevron or whoever the fuck discovered climate change and that it was a bad thing, and then they fucking hit it. Like,
yeah, but even under Democrats, it's 68%. It's not like
how can the people make an educated decision though when they're being fed an insane amount of disinformation by people with vested interest?
That's an argument against democracy, which is finally something that's on
topic.
That's not democracy specifically.
I was in favor of a teenage boy taking over the world with a special power, okay, anime style. All right.
No, China literally pumps like China, like some
You're gonna be the
monarchs
king of
in
the
the Middle
pirates.
East pump much more, like destroy climate, and they have zero awareness of it, and they're not democratic, right? Doesn't do with democracy. This thing, this
All
has this. You can criticize capitalism for this, but you don't criticize democracy. I don't think the voting system has anything to do, or like the power system has anything to do with this. I think it has to do with how our markets are like evaluating our own values, right?
I think like. Sorry, go ahead.
And I mean, like one important thing, like the triangle of necessities. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, like the dark triad. No, just kidding. The what do you call it? The like what do it doesn't have to do with the voting system. It has to do with the necessities of the population here. And not only that, it has to do with the power of the markets there and how much influence they do to influence the population. And I don't see like if you like spread the same anti-vaccine like campaigns that they do, but like do it for climate change, I think you can do some sort of awareness for it. I have not had like good example as an anecdote of my own. I have had no motivation to help anyway the climate change, because not this was like I didn't know about it. It's just not only that I not know about it, it's just I didn't give a fuck. But then I started giving a fuck, and then like some small habits like can change, and that you can do by convincing. I think democracy can help with that. Not
But
go
what if you had never been convinced not to give a fuck? Then you'd be sitting here telling me how climate change isn't real, and that how like the next super volcano or some shit is gonna fucking reverse climate change. Like that's what you would be saying to me.
Why are we
if
fucking
you
here?
were, you know? So and there's plenty of people who believe that. I used to be one of them. I have been open about the fact that I was a fucking conspiracy theorist in the past.
Sure.
Like people fucking believe some absolutely crazy dog shit. Like the fucking Earth is 6,000 years old. And so disinformation, and I think like the fact that we have foreign adversaries literally targeting our elections, maybe not this last election, but the election before that, you know, that's something that we need to start taking into account when we talk about democracy. Like you could say it doesn't have anything to do with it, but when it's convincing a huge swath of the public that one issue is bullshit or this other issue is fucking bullshit or whatever, like then you have a serious problem for the legitimacy, and I think it does undermine your case for democracy.
No,
and
I would say, wait.
I don't think
Captain A.
people
Jones.
should be allowed to vote on like NAFTA. Holy fucking shit!
What
People
does
don't
NAFTA?
fucking understand the first thing about a trade deal. Brexit.
All right,
That's crazy.
Captain A. Jones. Captain A.
This
Jones.
leads into what SDA or SDM and Derry was saying. This is why I'm in favor of Republic. I want the professional politician to be like, hey, look, I'll sell you on this. This is my platform. This is what I want you to elect me on. If you do elect me, I have a full-time job of understanding this shit and why you have a limited representatives that go up and they do this as their full-time work, their full-time staff, to have the resources to do this. This is why I'm in favor of that kind of thing. The other thing I want to hit real quick, Pisco, I love you, but I thought you had more respect for me than being a bargain bin pickup from Conservatives Are Us. I'm really pissed off with you right now.
What? More respect for you?
Yes.
Oh, you just call him Pisco. You're talking about respect.
Wait. You think
Pisco,
I'm a
come on.
bargain bin conservative?
No, I thought you had the other way.
Oh, I think you are a bargain bin conservative?
Yes.
Well,
Oh.
at least
Why
Cracker
when did
Barrel.
I say
like,
that?
Come on. Like that's not. It's like it's one of those. You know, it's like
When did I say that?
Plus. It's a
Someone
C2.
tell me when I said that.
Okay,
Don't
a
worry,
furniture
I'll give it to you
establishment.
later. I'm just giving you shit.
Okay,
Okay.
Nathan,
Okay.
you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. If I could respond to like Captain A's point. His point was like misinformation is very common and a lot of people believe in it, and that's one of the big flaws with democracy, right?
I hate this point.
What?
Is that kind of like where is that
No, I
kind
don't
of
even think,
like the point?
No. Who gets to decide what is misinformation? What is a fact? Even if you have a fact, how you present that fact, it changes everything. If I come out I'm like pro-abortion, if I come out like pro-choice and I'm like, abortion is when you kill a clump of cells that would otherwise become a human,
You
nobody's
can
gonna fucking vote for that.
You can engage with this hypothetical and
Nobody's gonna
assume
fucking vote for that, right?
reason why I
Like
asked this
misinformation. What the fuck does that mean? It means nothing.
you can engage with them and assume.
Going back to that.
Assume
The reason why I brought it up. Because like we know there's a lot of misinformation about COVID and mask and all that stuff. We interact with conservatives all the time that are sold on this and misinformation. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm gonna go once again to polling data. There's been polling data done on vaccine and mask, and literally most of the divide for the different COVID debates is 60-30 in favor of vaccines or in favor of masks. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot. But even Fox News polls show that mask wearing and vaccines are popular. So, like, I understand that misinformation is a thing, but I don't think I think it's a little overstated, because if we did what I've been suggesting of expanding democracy and having greater representation somehow, some way, whatever that way may be, I think you're going to have better results. Like, let's say we would have had what Biden did with the mask, or with the vaccine mandate, the soft mandate that doesn't actually mandate it, but I like it. If we would have had that like a year ago or like 6 months ago, if we were actually representing the people's positions on it. So I don't think misinformation is. I think it's a little overstated. Democracy can still survive even with
It's
misinformation.
a huge
And
problem.
I'm sorry, but I would argue that
final point.
Minorities
don't have
do-
the
thing
if we
that
don't
got
have
Trump
democracy.
elected in 2016 by the fucking razor slim margin that he got elected by, and then Trump threatened democracy. Holy shit!
But look,
I just made
Trump,
like a really easy case.
A minority of people can
Yeah.
have a huge amount of damage on our system, and so you're saying that it's not a problem because an opinion poll says that most people got it right.
No,
That's not the
it can
issue.
still be
You know,
a
like,
problem.
exactly.
It's not just.
We have
It doesn't mean that democracy is fundamentally broken.
with all
though.
the gerrymandering and with all
But
the
democracy
fucking
needs to have an
bullshit.
answer for that, and democracy needs to have an
But
answer.
with the
for
with the
the
And that is to
minority.
expand the.
I don't
Man,
know
I
what
love
the
it.
answer is, but
Democracy.
clearly it's a huge problem, and he can't say that.
The liberal democracy has an answer for when a minority tries to threaten the democracy. A fucking army, right? Like literally, which is so based, right?
True.
Like that's good.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
I mean, why? I mean, the poll
I fuck
did
with that.
harm. Like, I'm not saying the capital thing did harm. It did harm for police officers, but in no way it actually threatened democracy.
So you're in favor of secret police going and arresting everyone?
Yes.
Thank you.
The Mossad
Oh,
specifically.
okay.
Thank you.
You know, the
Tough.
KGB was so effective; it like scared America. That's why McCarthyism existed.
God damn it! Why? Stop. Fuck.
Okay.
So instead of communists,
Good panel.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit.
Just have the secret.
the new Red
secret
Scare.
police.
You know, I'm
All right,
as a blue Democrat, I'm down for it. Actually,
That's
Fuck
the
it, let's
solution
go.
to disillusionment with democracy: is to instill a KGB, just kind of what they
Yeah.
do. Mm.
No, we'll just recall Gavin Newsom.
Have we just moved into
Problem
the
solved.
this panel? Is that
No,
where we're at?
I hate memes. Can we do closing
I
statements?
hate memes.
Yes.
You want closing statements? All right, we usually don't. But that's fine.
Can I have a closing statement?
Oh god.
Yes.
1 second.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
keep going.
I would like
so many
to-
things.
1 second. Great. Thanks. To my audience, what's going to happen is we're going to go into an open walk-on panel. Right after this, stick around. The content does not end. We're just giving an outro to these amazing people who came and joined us. But we will still have more content for you. We'll have another panel, more great stuff, right? So stick around for that. So also, if you've just found this channel, you've just found it and you've enjoyed what you see, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. I do this 6 nights a week. Don't want you to miss out on all the content that we have here. So hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on if you haven't done so already. Exclamation point social and chat. For the social media stuff, I'm surprised I spelled that right. For our social media, follow us on Twitter for channel updates. Jump into our Discord where we have all our conversations. Everything takes place there. Want you to be a part of that, right? Online, offline, we have conversations all the time. Voice channels, text channels. That's the heart and soul of the community. Be a part of that. Join the Discord. And, of course, go to YouTube for VODs, right? They live there, right here. So if you're looking for past content, go to our YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Help us grow that platform as well. Okay, let's go to Captain A. Jones for if you can outro or you can do whatever you want.
Well, as you know, I love democracy and I love our republic. And here is where we go into fascism, folks. And that's like, this is where we're at. All right. We just fucking got away from this whole shit. Anyway, no, I don't do an outro on the topic. What the fuck? I'm Captain A. Jones. You can find me CPTAJONES on Twitter, on Twitch. Prime, thanks so much for having me. As always, I really love being on these panels. And to everyone else on the panel, thanks for being here. It was really fun arguing with you all. And I hope to argue with you again in the future.
Okay, let's go to Derry. Thank you so much, Derry, for coming on, being a part of this, and giving your opinion. Derry.
Well, I've barely scratched the surface of my thoughts on this topic.
Stick around for the open panel. We'd love to hear more.
So just kind of, I guess, what we really talked about as far as like the democratic republicanism of the country. We can't ignore that 47% of the country wanted Trump. That's not a irrelevant amount of people in the country. So that's something we have to consider when it comes to questioning the efficacy of democracy, which is the topic of the panel. One of the things that we have to think about is how quickly progress is changing. We're all pretty young here, and so it seems like things aren't moving fast enough. But my preface to this whole panel was that understanding history has given me kind of like this scope of how things have changed. Things like the anti-vax movement didn't start recently. There's been anti-vax in Rome where people are literally dying on the street of plague, and they're just cuddled, and they're like, "This is a hoax." Benjamin Franklin was somebody who was mad that his son died because it wasn't inoculated. As far as vaccines, which was another part of the question, and so we have to realize that progress is kind of slow sometimes. So as far as disillusionment goes, I to kind of counter that is to look a little bit about a short history ago on how much things have been progressing, how much things are still progressing, not even just in this country, but around the world. It's a slow process, but it's definitely moving faster because of more international, because of the internet.
Thank you. Next, Dancing Spoon / SneakyDebateMan. Sneaky, I'm always like super pumped, right? Like that you could take time out of your day and it's like late night for you always because of time zone nonsense, but still you make time for our community, and it's a treat every single time. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Prime. I think my final position on this really hasn't changed too much. One, electoral college, that can go. Two, first past the post, that can go. Three, I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your system over there. Get a parliament like the rest of the developed world, you fucking nuts. All right, they're really good, trust me. Like everywhere else has one, they're really great. Okay. I do think a healthy dose of expert opinion, and which is like technocratic influence, is probably good for like maintaining the health of a democracy. That being said, I'm not completely against democracy, and as Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government, apart from all the others that have been tried.
Thank you.
Yeah, true.
Okay, next, Valency. It was nice having you here for the very first time. Super pumped that you could join us. We'd love to have you here in future. Valency.
Okay, so final thoughts is I didn't change anything. I'm still based. Social democracy all the way, bro. And what do I want to say? Follow me now. I'm streaming now. This is my first stream ever. I'm sorry I didn't chime in because I had to fix some shit. So yeah, and join the Caribbean Club. See me there, okay? I am always there. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Next, I'm gonna say Pisco for last. I'm just gonna do it. Next we got Nathan, another mod here in our community, and who came in, and again, like he always, I love that how engaged you always are. It means a lot that you do so, right? Like not everyone is, but you like always are when you go on these things, and I value your opinion. So Nathan, please.
Well, I appreciate that, number one. Very much do. But yes, I'm Nathan, the Nathan Galang on every other social media. I just put my YouTube channel, or a recent YouTube video I uploaded today, in the chat. You should watch it. It's only 4 minutes. Actually, watch the full thing because watch time is very important. But I guess my final point on the subject of this panel. There are many problems with democracy. The problems listed, though, I don't feel like delegitimize the system. I agree with Sneaky Debate Man that democracy is very flawed and could be seen as bad, but when compared to like literally every other system, it's the best we got. And the ways we address the problems, in my opinion, is expanding democracy. It can come in a variety of ways. Maybe you don't agree with me on money and politics, sure, but we can get rid of gerrymandering, right? That's one first step, and we should all be working towards that. But yes, I'm the Nathan Galang on every other social media: YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. You should subscribe or follow or whatever. And thank you, Prime, for inviting me.
Very great. All right. Next, Tiberius D, who came through. I sent him, an invite, and I was surprised that he was like so pumped for this particular topic. I was happy that he was, and a guy like a lot of really interesting opinions, and a great perspective. So thank you for sharing your time. I know it was a hassle for you because of work, but you made it here any which way. So thanks.
It was a lot of fun. And to close out my final thoughts on this one, I'm going to just highlight the last thing I said, because that's actually the consensus or the thesis that I have with this, is that I'm in favor of a democratic republic. I want everyone to have that vote so that they have the legitimacy to say, I like this or I don't like this, and they have a ability to redress problems and grievances that they have in the greater system at large. However, I do want a republic because it allows for an more or less a political elite that can take the time, the energy, and the diligence to understand what is going on throughout its system, to gravitate to that and have an integral relationship. However, to have that, it requires something. It requires that you, yes, you, get involved. And so whether it is the littlest thing you can do of getting on this panel or getting involved in any way that you can, do so. So if you agree with me, come here and fight the fight when I can't. Or if you don't agree with me, come on here and tell me why I'm a dumb sack of shit and I need to shut the hell up. Anyway, if you are interested in other political content of this nature, tomorrow on Mask All Conversations, Counterpoints, Aristocracy, GSU Gambit, Hansa Arkir, Osiris, Pisco 95, Samantha Banana, Taze Grove, and myself will be discussing education and what the role education should be in the wider, or basically in the wider context of society. Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. On to Pisco.
Okay. Peace. Go. Like I said, first mod and just like top tier guest. I unfortunately I don't get a chance to have him on so often because he's working, doing all kinds, like taking the world by storm. Our friend here, but like when I do, I'm like, yes, got Pisco, right? I know, guaranteed, I'm gonna have a good panel. Like no matter what, we're gonna make it into a good panel because he's just that type of guest. He's that much fun to talk to. So thank you, Pisco, for coming through, spending your time. I know you were busy tonight, but you still made time. Thank you so much, Pisco.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure. I like the topic a lot, so if you have a good enough topic, usually I'll try to make room, even though I have work to do. I don't know, to do an education, that sounds boring, but you should still watch Tiberius' thing. I don't know why I'm on there. I'm not an education person. But I guess, I don't know, someone might say something.
You're gonna have to argue against people who don't want to have school mandated.
Oh, is that what's happening? Oh, is that what this is?
No. You know that what it is you're going up against Connor, and you want to go up against Connor. That's what it is.
On the merits, in all seriousness, I have the following thoughts on democracy. I think everyone said it already, that democracy is painful. It has contradictions. Oftentimes we have questions about what democracies ought to matter, the levels of generality. I think Sneaky Debateman brought that out exceptionally in talking about, well, democracy for someone in Alabama might be different from someone in the whole country versus what denominator are you talking about? That's a problem as well. The problem of misinformation, which I think Valencia brought to bear, as well as others, in how that dictates the effects of democracy. All that is true. But ultimately, I think democracy is best thought of regardless of whether you have extremely high levels of political participation or moderate levels of political participation, as a great safety valve to prevent the excesses of government into the lives of the majority. Yes, there are many times in which the majority doesn't look out for its own interests, but I think at the very least, democracies have the ability to keep power separate and act as a safety valve in case governments get out of hand, and then they become activated, and they sort of make their will felt. And so ultimately, even though we might wish for a little bit more political participation by some, a little less political participation by others, and a little differences in how we maintain our democracy, I think it's a project worth taking, and one that is the way forward.
Thank you so much.
Pisco. So I'm sorry that I have to do this, but I was told and paid to do this. So really, I'm just a whore. But I was told to tell you to shut the hell up, okay? But also that I love you, okay? And so I just want that to be. It was Rackus.
Who was it?
It was Rackus, and you know it, Culliver. Yep. So anyway, but I agree with that. I agree with that. Except this time, I actually really agreed with you, so I wasn't telling you to shut that up.
I didn't actually shout myself out. I just did the closing statement. Okay. All right. I said it's Derry, and then here's, I don't know if that's how you spelled the last bit there. Okay. I'm mostly active on Twitter and Discord, talking about any specific thing, history, politics, whatever. I really get into the weeds of it, the actual science of it, the actual nerdy stuff of it. If it's a policy that I talk about, I actually read it. If there's some kind of, like, I was able to pull that stat for Nathan really quick. If I talk about some kind of like poll or whatever, I'll always have the links in my Discord if you're curious about it, or even past conversations as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And you can just for future reference, you can like click on your name and you can change it there so people can see it on the screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for the kindness of being here. Like, this was great. I thought we had a really interesting discussion, wide-ranging one. But we are going to go to our open walk-on panel right after this. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate it as much as I do. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.